Hello everybody, it is I, Krisis, and today we're trying something new. We're doing a reading guide and a full rank of every single cover of modern Moon Knight. Do not adjust your screens unless they need adjusting, but if it doesn't seem like they need adjusting, don't adjust them, because it is I, Krisis with a K, coming to you live from this lovely morning in New Zealand, and we are trying a new thing today, although you wouldn't know that if you're watching this later, but if you're watching it for the first time or live, yes, this is new. Basically, we've been talking recently about how could I talk a little bit more about the art on the covers of books, because I often have comments on them as we go through any of our kinds of shows, and then we've also been wanting to get a little bit more deeply into my site, Crushing Krisis, which is one of the biggest reading guide sites that exists on the internet. It has reading guides to hundreds of characters. And so I thought, what if we rolled that up into a ball and put together having a run through the reading guide of a character, as well as looking at all of the covers covered by that reading guide. Now, there was some chatter that I might start with Wonder Woman. The hair should be a hint, but I thought, you know what, let's start with somebody on the Marvel side, and let's start with a character that maybe doesn't have a 80-year history, and so we're starting with Moon Knight. So today I'm going to be talking about the reading order of Moon Knight from 2006 to present, how all of his series go together for the past 20 years, a little bit of insight about the ones I've liked the most. I really do enjoy this character, but along the way we are going to look at over 250 covers, and I'm supposedly going to be ranking them all in order of my preference. We'll see how that goes. The most ranking I think we've ever done on the show is 112, and that took 4 hours. So I don't know how 250 is going to go. We might give up part of the way through, but you know what? That's part of the fun that you have signed up for today. So I'm going to just say hello to a few of the live viewers, and then we are going to get underway. Superjock was our first one in the comments and has some opinions on Moon Knight, often has really opinions on just about everything. Matt H sent me a lovely message overnight separate from that as well. Hello to you. Cedric and Ellen, who loves Moon Knight, has every Moon Knight comic. Logan Wayne, who I would think would really enjoy Moon Knight because he's got that image profile of both Batman and Wolverine. I think Moon Knight kind of exists somewhere in the middle. Edwin Billiot, one of our regulars. Andrew Lingard is here. Mall360 loves some reading orders. Jade Rabbit always asking the most incisive questions, and just got their copy of Harleen, one of my favorite comic books, actually. Shockmaster General is here. Puddin' Tame, Lowe's Master 5224, hello from the Great Lakes State of Michigan. Max Appleman is here. Martian Manhunter has Moon Knight #1 omnibus shipping to me as we speak, so great timing. James Abel, the Cerebro of the comic-loving internet, is here. Maclock is here. Hello to Nick N and Saz Murph. Shunter Navarro. Have we said hello to Shunter Navarro before? I don't know. The name is not rolling off the tongue, but I know that we have said hello to Jay Passan before. Moon Knight, not for me, but have fun, everyone. Well, I didn't even know he was for me, and I'll talk a little bit about how I first discovered him. Lance the Library's here, who knows next to nothing about Moon Knight, so maybe I can hype him a little bit, as is my Australian friend Reaper XC. Body by Leafield is here, but no more Leafield body in the profile picture, so I have nothing to model myself after. Urna Paul's Papa John variant. Are we getting hot like Papa John with the Papa John variant? Jamie C, 4799, has not read much Moon Knight, but has been waiting for the McKay run to end to jump in. Now the water's fine. Kia ora to New Zealand Hawkster. And also to, oh my gosh, Samantha in that awesome Spider-Woman costume. She was just on Chubby Ray's channel, and I haven't had the chance to watch it here just yet. And finally, D. Marcel. So there's a different kind of stream for me, but I would like to find a way to do this a lot, both the reading guide side and the what's the other thing we're doing? Oh yes, critiquing 250 plus covers. So what's wrong with me? So Moon Knight, I had virtually no awareness of reading comics in the 90s. I was into X-Men, I was into Spider-Man, I read Avengers. He wasn't on any of those teams, and I wasn't deep enough into the back issues of Avengers West Coast to know that he had been a member there. And then I also read, DC and Image and stuff too. He didn't really have like a super hot artist on him. He did have Stephen Platt, I want to say, at the end of that run, which is why those back issues are so expensive, but that was kind of lost on me. And so I truly was not aware of who he was. Like, I knew that he was on the cover of the Atlantis Attacks annual with Punisher, and that was the complete awareness that I had of Moon Knight, because he didn't really move in those X-Men circles. He was only in Spider-Man for a few issues, and I guess I didn't have those issues. So when I came back to comics reading in 2010, I was completely unaware of Moon Knight and continued to be unaware of him for a few years. And then there was this game, Avengers Alliance, on Facebook, which had so many different characters. My favorite kind of comic book game is a game that has dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of characters. And this had Moon Knight as one of the special characters. So I got him and I was like, Moon Knight? Did they just make that up? Like, my brain didn't even recall him from the 90s. And so, as often happened in the 2010s, when I found out about a character through a game or through a movie or something, I was like, I wonder what that character's all about. And then a couple months later, a reading guide was born. So my Moon Knight reading guide has been around since 2014. For the past 12 years, I've been adding to it as we go. It has his complete reading order from his first appearance all the way to present. But we're going to start tackling him today in 2006, which I'm calling modern Moon Knight for a couple of reasons. First, because there's a pretty big gap in Moon Knight between the year 1999 and 2006. He just makes a small handful of guest appearances. And B, that is Marvel's general convention with their epic collections, where like somewhere in the break between 1998 and 2005, that's where modern begins. And plus, it's a nice 20-year cutoff. So it's perfect. It starts right there for reading purposes. It's after a long break. It's what Marvel would call modern. So that's what we're going to call modern. And as I was making the guide, as I often did back in the day, I started buying his books, because you couldn't read everything on Marvel Unlimited quite at that point. Maybe you could, but I didn't know that. And I basically loved every one. He truly is this weird midpoint of like a Batman, but played in the Marvel universe the way Marvel would play Batman, plus like a little bit of Wolverine, plus he's got a lot of awesome elements to him. And if you don't know the character well, if you've never seen the MCU show, or even if you have and you've never read him in comics, his dissociative identity disorder, he has 3 different identities, sometimes more, that are vying for control of him. And he's also pledged his life to a moon god of Egypt, Khonshu, who may or may not be imaginary, depending on the run. And so that affects kind of how he behaves and what his powers are, if he has any powers at all. And I really enjoy it because it can really go all the way from hyper personal stories about identity and personality, all the way to really big superhero violent stories. But he doesn't always have to be hyper violent, and he sometimes has a little bit of a push and pull about how hyper violent he is. So with that explanation, I think we're going to jump right in. I'll say hello to Handel Scrooge. Do I know works of artist and storyteller from Australia, Sean Tan? I mean, I know The Arrival, the movie, but I will point out, this is a great example. If you want to talk to me about things other than Moon Knight, we are going to have an after show after the stream, however long it lasts, 8 hours, 24 hours, who knows. The link to the after show is in the description if you are watching live, and we'll just talk about whatever questions you have in the after show. If you're not watching live, links later go on to Crushing Krisis as a benefit for patrons of Crushing Krisis. Okay, I think we're going to give it a try. Here we go. Okay. It looks good. I think I made it work. The only thing is I couldn't make this, just to get 2 things to show on streaming at the same time was a challenge to begin with. And then to get one of them be a PDF with 200 pages, because you've critiqued in the past, sometimes on TierMaker, we can't see how big things get. By the way, there is an extension for TierMaker that makes the things blow up when you hover over them, which sounds cool, but then when you're trying to drag them around, it gets really hard to know where you are, okay? So here we are in 2000. Let me get centered in my camera here. Okay, here we are in 2006. That is where we begin with Moon Knight finally getting a new series. It's a series by Charles Huston as the writer, and there is an oversized hardcover and omnibus that has all of this pretty much all the way up to 2010, collecting everything. So this is a great series to jump in on. It introduces Moon Knight. It introduces his supporting cast. It kind of shows you that he has a history, but you don't really need to know his full history in order to enjoy the series. I didn't, certainly. And it kind of, it introduces Marlene and Frenchie and Bushmaster and Khonshu and all of these concepts. So it's a great place to start. Actually, probably one of the best places to start Moon Knight other than at the beginning. So here's this first cover. I believe it is a David Finch cover. That's the one thing I didn't think of. How am I going to tell you who draws each cover? We'll get there. But I do think it's a David Finch cover because He's also the interior artist here. And you know what? I've always disliked this cover because, and we're not going to go this deep about all of them, but I just want to establish like a little bit of a trend of how I'm going to talk about them. Because when I look at a cover, really look for a composition. And the composition of this is a little confusing. He's like centered, but he's a little bit off to the center, but he doesn't really have like look space off to one side. So we're still experiencing him in the center. Usually if a character has like look space off to one side or off to the other side, it's kind of directing our view as a viewer. But here he's just weirdly centered. There's clearly a statue that's Khonshu's statue in the background, but he's kind of weirdly placed on the shoulder of it so that Khonshu's little sickle thing with the moon on it is like right over Moon Knight's shoulder, which maybe is meant to be giving us a hint of moon over his shoulder, but it's just like a very strange balance. And then his one hand is off to the side. We can't see it. He has 3 of his little moon chucks in the present. It's a very crowded and confusing layout to me. And so I've just never really loved it. It's just never been a particular favorite cover of mine. So we're not going to go that deep on each one, but I do want to kind of tell you what I'm thinking about. So we have the standard Tear Maker Tears. Iconic to me is like, okay, this is one of the best Moon Knight images ever. It's what I would use on the cover of a guide. It's what I would expect to see when I see him in a search on the internet. This one to me, I mean, it's pretty, I really don't like it. I think we'll give it a C because it's like still David Finch, but I'm not a fan. Issue number 2 here. Now, to me, this is a classic Moon Knight cover. First of all, the logo is the same, but because it's on the other side, it kind of gives us look space on the cover. He's looking off to the side. We've got the classic gargoyle perch right there on a chimney. He looks gigantic. And I also really like, and this will be a recurring theme, when Moon Knight covers take advantage of the white of his costume, the white of the logo, because of course, white on a cover means there's nothing printed there. There's nothing published there. And so it really lets the paper shine through. Or if you're the colorist, as we see with Rachel Rosenberg in the modern day, you can like really play with the effects of the color to kind of make him almost glow. So to me, this is, I don't know if it's best ever. It's kind of dark. It's kind of hard to make out some of the features. You know, Finch really festoons everything with so much detail. But for me, that's a solid B, I think. All right, so you kind of get in the vibe of where we're going here, this very visual stream. And I am going to talk a little bit about the stories as we go, but I haven't read some of this for, like 12 years, although I did page through all of it as I was getting ready for this. Okay, so now we have the third cover. This one's pretty cool, but there are some things I don't love about it. So I love this looming Moon Knight. I love that he himself is a statue and that there's like things inscribed on him as he gets lower. I also love whenever they kind of make Moon Knight glow a little bit of a color. So I love this blue cast, this creepy blue cast. Is it motivated lighting? No. Where is it coming from? Nowhere. But I don't really love covers that composite a lot of different elements at different sizes. I think if it was just him as a soldier on the right there, I would kind of be into it. But then there's like the random, I guess it's probably French Lady Marlene, just like slammed into the bottom corner there. And they don't have any relationship to anything else on the cover. They kind of have a relationship to the hieroglyphs that are inscribed above them. But it's just like, I don't know. So I think this one is gonna be, I do love the Moon Knight and I can almost ignore them, but I just think that's bad composition. So that's also gonna go into C. Okay. So now we have a cover of Moon Knight. Now, this is the thing. Not all covers are just pin-up-y covers. You'll notice this in a run of comic books. Often the first cover is the most pin-up-y cover and it's got like a character in there. Hero pose. And then we start getting into like action covers and storytelling covers as we go on. And so this is telling the story clearly of the fight that's happening in this issue. Moon Knight's kind of, on the ground. He's got blood around him. Again, it's just so dark. I get the implication that it's like Khonshu and his bad guy looming over him and the bad guy, maybe is gonna, but it's just, I don't find it very visually appealing. Maybe because I just don't like a lot of reds and blacks in a cover unless we're doing like gothic vampire. And this is not that. For me, this is like a D. Like I can't say that I'm excited to see this again. The composition is better than the other ones. Although I do think everything stacked on the middle, stack, is not great. And they took the moon out of the logo too, which I don't super love. I'm giving that one a D. Okay, because we got to move fast. There's 250 some covers. By the way, I am looking at the comments, so you get in quick with the comments if you have an opinion about one of these covers, because we gotta fly. Okay, so then this one shows 2 people that I love to see face off, Moon Knight and Taskmaster. I love Taskmaster. Maybe we'll we'll do some kind of Taskmaster stream at some point because I just find him so entertaining and I really, really enjoy him. They both have the white in their costumes, which kind of makes it really fun to put them in opposition for each other. And I like that this cover kind of gives them space from each other. Like Moon Knight's kind of like a little bit off to the center. He's all torn up. The flesh under his costume kind of gives you contrast with the white. He's looking down in a way. Taskmaster is above him swinging. I don't know if this quite gets to like best cover ever, but in terms of Finch, who can sometimes like over-engineer things and overline things, I actually think this is pretty fun. I mean, look how gigantic Taskmaster's arm is there, but I enjoy this. This is a fun cover, and I think I'm going to put it on the B tier. Not like a best cover ever, but I'm enjoying it. Okay, so now we come to the end of the first arc, and here we are, super, super tight on Moon Knight. Now, this is a trope that I really like, when we go super, super tight on a character, and they fill up the entire space on the cover, and there's like no room around them, and we just focus on them. I really enjoy that. I love the glowing eyes. I like the hood, kind of like all tattered and ripped, so it's like barely hanging from a thread. I love all this like gore dripping off of his knuckles. I think this is really good. This to me is almost iconic. I wish the white was not so silvery. I wish it was like a little bit more white. It's actually kind of like grayish, dark black. I think if it popped a little bit more, it would kind of strike me as more iconic because it would just kind of glow. But I do think this is an outstanding cover. Now, if you're reading this in omnibus, you will just keep reading in omnibus. But that was the first trade paperbacks worth of issues, 1 through 6, which was known as the bottom. So now we are coming to the second arc of this, which is tying into, I guess, like the aftermath of Civil War, because it's got that Casualties of War header on it. So let's see, this one again, I kind of, you gotta love anything that's a Spider-Man team up. I love when there's a little bit of a background to give context, which is the clock here, which is going to recur across all of the next couple of covers. I love Finch drawing Spider-Man. I mean, this is just a really, really cool cover. I love that they're anchored onto one side and they're kind of looking off to the other side. Spider-Man has all of this great articulation and all of the muscles in his rib cage and stuff. And I think seeing a more live character on the same screen as Moon Knight kind of like helps give context to how big he is, which is kind of fun. Matt saying that giant Taskmaster looked like it belonged in Absolute Batman. And are we subtracting points because of ugly lettering and blurbs? I think I'm mostly taking into account the actual cover and the logo, but sometimes those things really could pull me out of it a little bit. The Spider-Man cover is great, but something about it not quite perfect, says Nick N. So I guess I'm gonna put this at the top of B. Nick swayed me. It was gonna go into A, but I'm putting it at the top of B. Okay, so now here's another team-up cover of issue, number 8. This is Moon Knight and Captain America. I don't like this as much. I don't like the Captain America looking very sinister with his face enshadowed. The star is like, doesn't feel like it's the right proportion. Moon Knight is kind of all squashed. He's covered up by the logo. I think the logo would have been better at the top, but they're trying to avoid putting it too close to the Casualties of War banner. I just think this one doesn't really succeed. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't think I could give it a D, but it's not really super pleasing to me. So now we have another team-up cover. This is issue 9. It's the Punisher and Moon Knight. And again, I love when they have some look space off to the side. Here, there's some clear space at the bottom of the cover where the logo really fits, which is a relief. And again, like so much shadow in the face, but I think it works on Punisher because he's a little bit more of a scary, sinister character. This is not like a favorite cover of all time for me, but it looks good. We're going to put it on the top of the C tier. And then this one, here we go with Punisher with Moon Knight with somebody breaking through the clock. I don't even recall who it is, but I mean, it's fine. There's really nothing spectacular about seeing somebody burst through a clock and menace Moon Knight. I think I like it even less than the Captain. So now we get to the end of Civil War, and we are in the follow-up, the initiative, although this is still in the same trade as those prior issues. This is issue 11. This kind of like very clean-looking, almost like Adi Gradov-esque cover for Moon Knight. I don't know if that really works for me with Moon Knight in this period, at least. And this is actually Esad Ribic on the cover, which is interesting because it looks so, I guess it's hard to tell when something is Ribic other than by the faces. I do say, Nick was saying Moon Knight was looking kind of bulky. At this point, he's like got an actual waist, which is pretty cool. This is a cool cover, and it's still got that clock motif in the background. I don't think it's like spectacular, best ever. Iron Man almost like fades away that you can't even see him, but it's a decent cover. I don't have any complaints about it. So now we go down to another one in the initiative, and here he is fighting his villain again. I like the motion blur. We've got the clock in the background. But to me, this is kind of just like nobody's ever going to remember this as one of the best Moon Knight covers of all time. It's not really all that cool. And then we have issue 13 clearly playing with his identity issues, saying, you know, code name Moon Knight, real name Mark Spector, powers inactive, gains enhanced strength, endurance, and reflexes at night. Reaches pinnacle during the full moon, sometimes prophetic visions, but clearly it's covered in blood. I do think there's like something a little bit iconic about the idea of his like Avengers members card and it being covered in blood splatter and the blood splatter being over the logo, but like artistically, I don't know that this is the most successful cover ever, by the way. And then finally, this is the placement of this first annual. So after issue 13 is where annual 1 reads. It's probably going to be there in the omnibus. I don't have the omnibus, but that's where it was in the trades, and that is where it is for his reading order. I do kind of like these covers of Moon Knight where it's kind of like it's far enough away that we can see his whole figure. There's something coming at us in the foreground. There's sort of like a little bit of an abstract thing happening in the background. I think this is actually pretty successful. And honestly, if it wasn't for that hideous, treatment of annual at the top, which I guess we are going to let that affect us, I think this would actually be one of my favorite ones we've seen so far. This is by artist Dave Wilkins. I really like it. I think it really works for me. I don't really get what he's standing on, and it almost makes it look like he's standing on one of his little crescent chucks, his moon chucks. So that's a little confusing because then it kind of looks like Cap's shield, and like, why is he standing on the shield? Now, looking at it more, I realize he's kind of just throwing it. But it's a pretty cool cover. I really, really enjoy it. And so that is going to be, I think, on the A tier for me. Nothing iconic yet. Enter Sandwich, hello to you. Love that issue. Edwin saying the clock motif was overdone. I mean, it was like 7 issues in a row. Nick saying, I like this cover. And 13 with the card, favorite so far for Richard as well. Okay, we're going to continue. So in addition to that, there is another one-shot. This was released later. I don't know where it's in the omnibus, but if you do want to read in order, this is where it reads, which is Moon Knight Silent Night. I had to go back and reread this last night to just remind myself of it. This is a really fun single Moon Knight issue to try if you've never read Moon Knight at all. It's on Marvel Unlimited under this Moon Knight Silent Night with a K, Knight. And the reason it's so interesting is it's just a one-shot story. It's just him like tracking down some people who beat up a Santa, and it is written by Peter Milligan. So it has this like very kind of like Batman one-shot, almost like Vertigo kind of feel to it. So it kind of like introduces his key players. It lets you know who he is. It's like a really, really good who is Moon Knight, why do I care? I will say I love him wrapped up in the Christmas lights and like riding this thing, but even if you get really big on this cover, it's really hard to see what he's fighting or what it is other than it being silhouetted. I think that works because that's not the focus of the cover. The focus of the cover is Moon Knight and like all the Christmas gifts and the Christmas lights. So I do think it gets that across, but the more and more I looked at it, I just wish that there was like a little bit more definition on the figure, but I do think it's a good cover, and I think I'm going to put it at the top of the B tier. Because, I mean, when you think of Moon Knight, you don't really think about holiday, necessarily. Cedric and Ellen says, I have a soft spot for color covers with colorful Christmas lights. Larry's Library is here. I was just thinking of you, sir. I have to send you a message. Okay. Now we're back to the regular series. With this series of covers I don't like so much, so I think we're going to fly through these. This is from a trade paperback originally called God and Country that collected issues 14 through 20. I'm not really feeling this kind of like almost... the cover feels unresolved, like the way that it's painted on top of the line work. I really just can't get down with it. It's by Arthur Sudiam, who does like a lot of Marvel Zombies covers, and this is his style. It just doesn't work for me, and part of what doesn't work for me is like I can get down with a creepy horror Moon Knight cover, but I need his costume to pop as white, and I just don't understand. I mean, compositionally it's okay, but I personally find it very unpleasant. Okay, so then we go to this next cover, and I actually do really like this one. Anytime we're playing with like all different faces, identities, Moon Knight like doing a rendering of himself, I love that. I love a cover that's an entire scene all on white so that we could almost like take off the logo and everything, and it kind of just works as its own complete picture, and we could zoom in and zoom out at it, and there's kind of no edges of the picture. I love that he's got an unused Captain America mask at the top there. I love all the discarded paint brushes. I love how like the Moon Knight is looking at him quizzically. He's got a beer or a soda like resting on an open book. There's just so much. I could zoom in and we could just see more and more and more. This one approaches iconic for me. I think this is really, really I think this is really, really fun. I think I'm going to put this at the top of the A tier. And you're going to see as we go on and Marvel really leans into playing with his personality differences more, we're going to see a lot more covers like that. Now we go back to another. Now, was that by Sidium too? Because that to me looked like it was a totally different style. Yeah, it was by him. So I don't always hate him. But this one I hate. Again, like I do enjoy him filling up the space. I actually think he works better on the right side of a cover because we read in Western comic media from left to right. So if we start with the character on the left, then we kind of just continue into the right and there's nothing there. And it's kind of like, well, what am I looking at? But I just think, again, like all the reds, I kind of just lose that he's Moon Knight. He looks like some other character. But compositionally, it's okay. So I think I got to put it a little bit higher than that other one I didn't like. But I just find it deeply unpleasant. Okay. And now, at least, as we get this looming skeleton figure behind him, we've seen this motif many times in classic Moon Knight. This is issue 17. We've seen this in the, there's a classic Bill Sienkiewicz cover that looks a lot like this one. This one kind of just really, really works for me. Even though it's kind of these ghostly colors, it works because he's stepping out of this other space onto black. He's got this looming thing behind him. That's really fun. I don't know if it's like a best ever cover, but I'm going to put it in the B tier. Also, since so many of you liked the ID card cover, I think we're going to move that hot to the top of the B tier because that seemed to really resonate with you. Okay. I see Martin Mori saying not going to stick around because he doesn't read Moon Knight. Just wanted to say hi and leave a like. And on the orange cover, he's looking more like Hobgoblin. Yes, that's who he looks like when he's really orange and you can't tell that it's white. He looks like Hobgoblin. I completely agree with that, Matt H. I don't like how Sudiem makes Moon Knight mud color. Yeah, it's really not really working for me. And Maclock saying it looks like an old Ultimate Universe cover. So keep the comments coming. Again, this is totally experimental. What I want to do, and what I said I was going to do is Wonder Woman. And I really am down to do 200 or 300 Wonder Woman covers, let me tell you. But I like the idea of Moon Knight because we've done several DC shows in a row. And also, Moon Knight on the whole, I know we've got a lot in the doughy middle here, but on the whole, he has pretty good covers. So I thought it'd be a fun one to start where you just don't hear me complaining the entire time. And I just wanted to experiment. So please comment as you go. If there's things I could be doing. The things that I can't do is change the shape of this window. This took, when I tell you hours to figure out the right way to do this, I'm not joking. So that's not going to change. I can't make the covers bigger and I'm not changing the shape of the window. But otherwise, if you have any comments, let me know. Okay. I hate this cover so much. Again, he doesn't even read his Moonlight. Just the little tippity tip of his little cow thing is not iconic enough that I know that it kind of gives owl, and that's what it's meant to imply. It's not iconic enough to read the character just with that. And again, he just looks like Hobgoblin. I mean, compositionally, he's okay standing on this roof, but I don't understand what it's kind of trying to communicate. And that like ghosted out Iron Man on the background and the way he's like hanging off of the page. And then it, like where is his repulsor ray even aiming? It's aiming over Moon Knight's shoulder. They have no relation to each other. The dark green logo looks hideous. I think this is our first F. I truly hate this one. And you know, you have to know something about me, and I don't know if this is like a neurodivergent thing or what for me, but if I see a cover of something that's really unattractive, or I see like character art that's really unattractive, even in a video game, I cannot use that character. Like, I would put off reading this forever, or like if it's a video game where I need that character for something, I will try to do everything I can to finish the mission without looking at that character's costume until I can unlock a better costume. It just grinds so the fork is in the garbage disposal in my brain. And I just can't get there. Yeah, and this is another thing, Super Job. I get that in the modern world of comics that people are more specialized on interiors versus covers, and that's a thing. But Mark Texeira does amazing covers, and he's really an amazing, iconic artist. So to know that we have Texeira on the inside, and then we have Studium still doing the covers, it just doesn't really, I don't understand why. I would want a Texeira on the cover. A lot of excitement about Wonder Woman. If this works and you have good feedback on this, I'm happy to come back and do Wonder Woman. Okay, now we are at issue 19, which means we are still in that same trade. And so again, here's the thing. Here, Moon Knight's costume is white. I think it's recognizable as Moon Knight. We can see the crescent on his chest. We got this figure looming over him. I think the kind of gothic red and black works here. This is actually pretty cool. Is he like floating, or he's on some kind of plinth? I love like the arms like all outstretched beside him and seeing all the musculature on the kind of inside part of his arm. CM is capable of doing cool covers. I think this is really cool. I really like this. There's just something about the ghostly way that he's just there, and like all of the cape flowing, it almost looks like he's carved out of marble. I really like the lighting, which is like blasting right down on him, which is creating that blown out effect right in the middle. And it's also like right, next to this giant scythe or axe or whatever, the person looming over him. I think this is a really good one. Do you guys like this one? I think this one is really, really cool. Maclock saying that Texeira is a top 3 artist for me. The Diodato cover, is this Diodato? Because that would explain why I like it so much. I do love Diodato. Maybe it's the next one. Okay. This is still Arthur Sudam, yeah, or Sudam. I don't know why I'm putting the Dia afterwards. But anyway, really, really love this one. Okay, so now we are on issue 20. Yeah, that looks like Diodato to me. That does look like Diodato to me. And so let's talk about what I like about Mike Diodato, one of my favorites. First of all, I don't know how well you can see this at this size, but it is Diodato on the cover. And Moon Knight, we're looking through the mouth of something. So if you can see those kind of like spikes, those are like the incisors. So we're inside the mouth of this like devil dog or something looking out at Moon Knight. That by itself is cool. Diodato, much like Finch, really draws a lot of, and Holtz is another one, draws like a lot of kind of like fabric crevices and wrinkles and things. But I don't think that Diodato in this era over detailed them as much as Hitch. And this is just a really clever idea for a cover. Like, how often do you see covers looking out of the mouth at something? I know it's just like a trope and it's a thing that people have done before, but for me, this is just like really fun and exciting. I don't understand why there's a random crescent in the bottom, which just looks like overlaid. Like, did it get separated from the logo somehow? But this is really approaching being iconic. It's a little dark, and I think it's kind of hard to even realize that you're inside of the mouth of something, but that doesn't make sense because there'd be like no light inside of the mouth. And I do like the pooling saliva and the drips, and then all these kind of like strands of saliva as he opens his mouth, which at first, if you're just looking at Moon Knight in the center, you think might just be like drips of rain, and then it's pretty cool. I don't know. Is this iconic? It's pretty amazing. Larry's Library is saying that it is stellar. Ted saying hello, and so is Ryan. This is the perspective of the inside from a werewolf's mouth. A great idea, although I don't love the execution. All right, well, based on that, I think we're going to put it towards the top of A for being super, super cool, but still not perfect. And this one where I thought he was standing on the crescent, I think I might have to move that down to B because that's bothering me more and more as I think about it. Okay, so now we're up to issue number 21. This starts a new arc. It's the death of Mark Spector. This trade paperback originally collected the Silent Night one-shot because it came out around this time, but it actually just reads better earlier. So we get, he's fighting against the Thunderbolts through a lot of this, and it's the Thunderbolts in that Dark Reign period, so it's a very fun run of them. I actually really thought that this arc of Moon Knight should have been in the Thunderbolts Dark Reign Omnibus because I think it actually is like really good Thunderbolts material. So here we have Venom looming over Moon Knight. I don't know why we got a 1-issue break from the Sudam covers and then we're back. I don't love him, but here's the thing. Moon Knight, recognizable here, crescent on the chest, so it doesn't matter that he's bright white. I love the likeness of his face. I think Sudam actually is really good at likenesses and not just monster stuff. I like the kind of giant venom looming over him, and I like that it's surrounded by white, and that the venom isn't totally symmetrical. I think there was probably the urge to make it totally symmetrical, and then it would almost like give like a Kings of Leon album cover. But I like this. It's fine. I don't think I have any specific objections about it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not exciting to me. I'm going to put it in the C tier. Okay. Then we have another one, Venom jumping at Moon Knight. This one is totally unexciting to me. I don't really like the proportions of Venom. I don't like his like weird chunky top of body and his like little smaller legs. I don't understand all the space. Where are they at the top of the scaffolding? Then what is Moon Knight or what is Venom jumping off of? I really hate the green logo. This to me is right on the verge of being on F tier. Then we have this one with this truly unsettling image of Bullseye. To be fair, Bullseye is an unsettling character, but his weird rictus grin here is just a little strange. But also, this is the first cover that we don't have a literal picture of Moon Knight on. He's in the kind of shot gallery here, but it tells us exactly what's happening. And this does that thing with white where we can like see the whole scene. Bullseye has been using him for target practice, and he's been hitting him, I guess, places he intends. I don't know, some of those clusters look like they could be better, Bullseye, but this is fun. I don't think this is like a best cover ever, but I certainly don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I think making Bullseye look that creepy does work for me. Marvel database credits Jason Pearson on this cover. I am currently using League of Comic Geeks because it's just easier for me to load it up in this other window. And I can see Sudiem's signature on the corner of it there. So I don't know. I'm trying my best to credit people as we go, and I'm not sure. And people not really liking the Venom one, and Richard Bates saying we're back to the Brown Knight with the color of his costume. So here, this one's kind of fun. I do really enjoy any cover where there's two characters in conflict and we see most of their whole body, and we kind of see them like crossing each other's bodies. So they're in a fist fight. Bullseye's got his hands in Moon Knight's face, kind of throwing his whole deck of cards. They're all Ace of Spades. I like that it left enough room for the logo at the top. I don't really understand the composition of like Moon Knight's body just being kind of a lump that falls off the side. I don't really understand like why we're cutting off Bullseye where we're cutting him off on his head and his knee. I like the whole thing just feels like we maybe could be zoomed out a little bit more to give them a little bit more space around it. It's really awkward for me compositionally. It kind of is, it's just like a weird clump. I think this is a D for me. I do like Bullseye's like puckered face as Moon Knight nails him across the jaw, but there's something about this one that I just think the shape of it is really kind of awkward. Okay, so now we are on to this issue of Moon Knight kind of letting go all of these birds flying. Again, he's kind of in the Brown Knight mode that just like, I mean, at least we can see the crushing on his chest. Compositionally, it's good. I like that the birds get thicker at the top to kind of give the logo something to run over. I do love all the kind of like bloody clouds in the background, but again, I'm just not sure that it's giving me Moon Knight. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it per se, but I don't think there's anything specifically right about it either. Okay, so now we are on to issue, I believe this is 26. This is the final arc of this, and this is actually pretty significant. So Moon Knight, after that encounter with the Thunderbolts, is kind of like on the U.S. government's bad list. And so I think he like fakes his own death, and he goes down to this town, and Punisher pursues him. And I don't think I really remember liking this too much. However, let's talk about this cover because I think this is a really successful cover. I really do like when Moon Knight is done in this kind of like ghostly glowing way. I love how bright the white is on the Punisher logo as well as the light behind Moon Knight from the moon. I love him looming there. I like the little shine on his crescent. This is by Gabriel Dell'Otto, who is a fantastic artist. I think a really, really great fit for Moon Knight. This is just really exciting to me. There's something about this one that just really, really excites me. But before we talk about more about that, Larry's Library has the Birds one autographed by Sidiem and Texiera. Tex is a great and friendly guy. And I do think of the Sidiem covers, it is one of the better ones. It's just kind of like not distinctly Moon Knight to me. And then Janie's saying something was just a little bit weird about Moon Knight there. And then Super Jop going back a few saying that Venom looks like he just jumped out of a cake and said, "Surprise! I'm gonna eat your brains." Okay. And then you'd be very surprised by that if that came out of your birthday cake. Yeah, I really am loving this one, Papa John variant. I think this might be one of the best covers we've seen the whole time. I just like Gabriel Dell'Otto. I mean, it's great. I have trouble putting anything else above it. It's kind of everything I want from a Moon. This might be my favorite one that we've seen the whole far. And the logo is great on Punisher. Yeah, the Punisher. And getting that awful green logo off the cover. Whoa, I don't know what that was about. All right, so these are all going to be Punisher covers. Here's another one. Again, just fantastic action shot. Great use of the space. Something really cool thing to do here that artists sometimes do is having the two characters on the cover look opposite ways because it kind of directs your vision on both sides. You kind of like follow it, and you know we tend to read things in a zigzag, but it's kind of subverting that because we start zigging towards Punisher's face and then he's looking back towards the left, so then we go back towards the left. I love a cover that almost works like a maze or like a pinball machine where you kind of just like bounce around on it a lot, and I really think that this cover does that. I don't know if it's quite as iconic or I didn't put it on iconic quite as great as that last one, but compositionally, this just like really, really works for me. I think it's really successful compositionally as a cover. This cover, I've spent so much time staring at getting ready for this show. I do not understand what is this? He's like, is it a scarab or he's a mirror? It looks like somebody's chest. I just couldn't figure it out. And the thing that kills me is about that is I love this Moon Knight. This is one of my favorite renderings of him we've had. He's bright white. We can see the crescent, the glowing eyes. His cape is tattered in the background, but I just do not understand what's happening on this cover, and it drives me absolutely crazy. Okay. Now we're almost done. Now we've got him fighting a pair of Lucadors. People were encouraging me to wear one of my Lucador masks for this, but then it was going to get makeup on the inside of it. I didn't want to do that. But this is really fun. It's a really fun action shot. I don't think it's like a best cover ever, but again, playing with characters looking the opposite direction of each other, really playing with the diagonal slash here across the cover, playing with Moon Knight, how white, again, Moon Knight should look really, really white on a cover to me. That's the advantage of using him. There's not a lot of characters like that. I don't know, like Emma Frost, the Fantastic Four in their white costumes. Use that to your advantage if you've got a character all in white. And then against the flesh colors of them, the kind of the him, notice how he's distending the rope of the wrestling ring as he's leaning against it. I just think this is super, super successful. Really, really fun. Absolutely love that one. One Wheelchair is here to say hello, just come back from performing in London and hasn't had any food left. Oh, I have all sorts of masks. I think they're like a break glass in case of an emergency sort of thing if I don't have time to get my face on. This one's sort of got a little bit of like a Moon Knight quality to it, a little bit. But yeah, I have a few. It just so happens I got them to appear on other people's channels where I maybe wanted to appear in the middle of the day and I like didn't have time. Oh, hold on. We have intel from Superdrop on that last one. It's a dude holding blades over his shoulder down his back. I still don't see it. I just don't understand. Sometimes it feels like it's like an optical illusion and I just don't understand it. Okay, so then we have this kind of like folkloric figure looming over Moon Knight. He's going to slash him. I love the composition of this, but it's like not the most exciting cover of all time, but it's nice, you know, to tell us who he's going to be fighting and what the fight's going to be about. And so I do enjoy that, but not one of my favorite of all time. Gosh, that was just the first 30 issues and it took us more than a minute per issue, so we're in trouble. We got to start picking up the pace here. Now that you're understanding my rationale, we got to go a little bit quicker. I could only find this cover this big. So this is Moon Knight Saga, which is one of those Marvel books where it recapped everything about the character up until this point. You don't have to read it, and it's not in the omnibuses. It was purely to get people ready for his next series, and so it doesn't even exist digitally, which is why I have such a small cover here. This cover is horrific. I do really enjoy the big crescent of him behind him, but then it's against the logo, which also has a crescent in it. And then also, like, I don't really understand the people in the foreground. His body position is awkward. It's doing that thing where his knees are bent behind him. You can't even see his feet. I hate this. I think this is one of the most hideous covers that he's ever had. Luckily, it is not an issue that we are going to have to see very often. Okay, now we are at the top of the 2010 run of Vengeance of the Moon Knight, which is a title we will see come back later. This is still in that first omnibus. We're still in the first omnibus, and the last series pretty much continues directly to this. The status quo continues to this. He basically, you know, was on the outs, had faked his death, but now he's come back to New York, and he's like even more violent than ever. And he's like got guns now, which is not usually a Moon Knight thing. I love this. This is a Lionel Francis U cover, and I think U's covers tend to be very stiff sometimes. This doesn't look stiff to me at all. He's very like kind of liquid, and it's very funny because the interior is Jerome Opeña, one of my favorite all-time artists, and I kind of almost didn't realize it was him when I opened it, and I was like, wow, who's this? Who's so good? It was Opeña. And so actually I think U is kind of like matching Opeña's style a little bit here. This is like would have been right before he was drawing Uncanny X-Force. And yeah, because this is in 2009. I love this. I think this, even though Moon Knight with guns is not iconic, if you want to show Moon Knight with guns, or just like look at it how he's like leaping towards us off of that motorcycle. I love this logo with the crescent across it. To me, this is the first iconic cover we've seen. Like if you say Moon Knight to me, in my mind, I can see this cover without any effort on my part. So now we have a lot of variant covers, and unfortunately this is going to create a problem for us because some of them are very small. But there's this one cover of that's like I think it's David Finch of him. I only did variants, by the way, for issues number one issues, because there's a million variants all the time ever. We're not up to the Bendis run yet. Vengeance of Moon Knight, we're still about 13 issues before Bendis. We're still before Bendis. We're still in that first omnibus. So I really actually like this one. Gosh, I wish we could see it bigger. I don't know if there's any way for me to show it to you bigger, though. Yeah, I don't know if I can show you it any bigger. But I like this. It's actually a really great cover. I'm sorry it's so small. Of Moon Knight kind of just on this corner of a roof with a neon sign above him. Really, really works for me. And then also working for me is this one where he's kind of just like on purple and he's kind of like lit by the light and there's all these kind of ethereal glowing covers around. I mean, I think, you know, variants do tend to go pretty hard. And so it's not surprising to me. But those are the only two variants in this run. Here he is facing off against Sentry, so clearly we're in the Dark Avengers period here. This is pretty good. Again, we know now that I like when characters look across each other. Moon Knight is nice and white here. He looks huge. We still have him holding a gun. There's something a little bit awkward about Sentry's pose. Like, he feels like he should be like flying with more direction. He's kind of leaping downward, which is a little bit weird, but I don't hate it. So now we get back to the core of Moon Knight's own stuff. This is Bushman, who is one of his iconic enemies. He kind of reminds me of Chapel from Image, who came after Bushman, of course. But, you know, again, I love this logo. I love the way they're positioned. I love a character looming over another character and then anchoring that character to the bottom corner. This, you know, is not the most attractive cover of all time, but I do think it's like very, very effective at communicating. You know, clearly we're in a cemetery. We see that marble statue over his shoulder. I think this one works, and it's exciting to me, even if it's like not the best cover ever. Logan Wayne saying Sentry also looks like he's jumping out of a cake. Well, you know, Sentry is what we in the wrestling biz call a flying nothing. That's very funny. Okay, so now we get to this cover of Moon Knight and this fighting off this whole crowd of people. They're kind of surrounding him. They're lifting him up. Here's the thing. I just think that there's too many other whites in the colors of these people, and I can't tell if maybe he's fighting his other identities here, and maybe that's why they're in white. But I kind of wish the contrast was a little bit different so he would stick off the cover a little bit more. I still really like it, and I like how it goes down to black in the front, and then it's almost like vignetted by the silhouettes of the people in the front. So it's not bad, but I do think there are some things that could be done to it that could have made it a little bit more effective. So now we're still in Vengeance of the Moon Knight. This is issue number 5. He's fighting somebody. He's punching him. There's birds in the background. That's diagonal. We've kind of covered all of this, and we know that it works for me. So I think we can just kind of like put that right in there and keep moving. Okay, now we get to a cool cover. This is Lionel Yu again. We're still in Vengeance of the Moon Knight. This is starting the second half of the series. I love this. I love the kind of shot from beneath. I love how his eyes are kind of on fire. I love the extra crescents on his belt. I love the cape up on one side, which is helping direct our eye across. I love this ghostly blue smoke across him. This to me comes right up to, but is not quite iconic. It's not one of the first cover images I think of when I think of him, but it's a really good cover, and I like it. All right. Hey, everybody, at that point in 2009, 2010, they love to see Deadpool for sales purposes. So here's Moon Knight versus Deadpool. This is a different cover artist. Let me see who it is. Obviously, I really like how bright white Moon Knight is here. It's what I've been asking for the entire time. It makes a great contrast against Deadpool itself. This is a Mike Choi cover who does really well with these super glossy covers. It's a little busy. There's a lot of like broken, shattered stuff, but it does feel like it's done with intent for me. And I know that's hard to do, kind of showing all that shattered stuff and like making room for it on the cover. And like, I find that really impressive, actually. Okay, once you're in split view, you can't change the size anymore. That's going to be a problem for us at one point, but we're just going to go with it for now. Okay, so again, fighting Deadpool. This one doesn't work for me. It's just like Deadpool's body shape is weird. I don't like all the glass with the reflections. I just think it's really posed very awkwardly. I can't say that I'm a big fan of this one. Then we get to things having the heroic age banner. So now we're kind of into the early part of 2010. Spider-Man and Moon Knight. This is a decent Spider-Man. I think he's like a little too angular for me. It's hard for me to get excited about it. I don't really like the negative space on this cover. I can't say that I'm a big fan of this one. Yeah, it just doesn't really work for me. And then here's the final cover in this run, which is number 10. We see that now he's firmly a member of the Secret Avengers. So this is the Secret Avengers that started in 2010. It was written originally by Ed Brubaker. Moon Knight has a pretty big role to play. He had not been in the Avengers since the late 80s in Avengers West Coast. So it's kind of a big deal to see him on a team again. I do like this kind of ghostly glowing light. I think this must be a Gabriel Delato cover again just because of the way the ghostly light glows. And no, it's actually Francesco Mattina on this cover. But I do think that it's doing one of these things that cover artists often do where they have so much of this like rain interference on everybody's faces that it's like you almost can't even see them in the background, which I guess is kind of the point. It's fine. It's fine. It's high side of fine. Okay, so now we're done The Vengeance of the Moon Knight, and we're to another series, which is Shadowland. Shadowland was a 2010 event that was mostly a Daredevil event. It spun out of Daredevil as part of that run of Daredevil by Andy Diggle, and a number of street-level characters participated in that event with Daredevil, including Moon Knight. But with Moon Knight, it was actually pretty cool because Daredevil was being influenced by the Hand and by the Beast of the Hand, and so Khonshu actually decides that he has like some opinions about that, and that kind of really works because, you know, it's kind of like, well, my pawn is this other thing's pawn is getting in the way of my pawn. So we've got 3 covers here. I'm going to rank them very quickly because this is not super essential for Moon Knight. I do believe it is still in the omnibus, and it is the next thing to read after that series. Yeah, it is in the omnibus. It's also in the Shadowland omnibus. You do not need to read all of Shadowland to understand this. For me, I'll just spoiler, I think all of these covers are just fine. There's nothing particularly exciting about them to me. We have this one's actually, no, I'll lie. This one's pretty cool. I mean, you know, it's kind of a gimme to see Moon Knight with any kind of Egypt iconography in the background. So putting a Sphinx there, it's like, okay, fine. And like just the giant moon and the giant Sphinx hand is like a little bit out of proportion to each other, but we're just trying to get everything into the panel. But I do think it is approaching an iconic image because it's pretty memorable. I just think there's something proportionally that's maybe off about it a little bit. And then we have this one super close up on Moon Knight and kind of seeing him. Is he a zombie or is 2 sides against each other? I do like stuff that's really close up on Moon Knight, but I think the problem with a cover like this is it's so specific to this story that it's kind of like, well, we can't really say that it's iconic because who's to say if it makes sense? It's not like who Moon Knight is. It's very specific to what is going on here. Superdrop saying, quality-wise, you don't need to read any issues of Shadowland. And Edwin saying it's early and already all the covers are merging into one image in my brain. And just think, we've only done about 45 of 250 so far. But that was a little bit, no, actually, it's just as long. All right, we got to go faster. So here's where the original, that Moon Knight omnibus ends. So this is where omnibus coverage of Moon Knight ends. Briefly, we don't pick up again. Actually, not so briefly. We don't pick up again until McKay. There's 1 or 2 omnibuses worth of material in the middle here. Some of it more worthy of reading than others. This is a very strange run by Brian Bendis. It's called Moon Knight. It's Moon Knight 2010. It was available in oversized hardcover, so you can have it match the omnibuses on yourself. With art from Alex Malev, which is absolutely gorgeous. But it plays with this idea that Moon Knight doesn't have his own 3 personalities, but that he has the personalities of different heroes, which kind of puts him a little closer to Taskmaster. This run was raked across the coals when it happened at the time, and for good reason. Bendis was known for trying to take kind of lesser loved characters and elevating them. But in this case, Moon Knight was already being pretty beloved in the present day, and Bendis doesn't elevate him at all. It kind of doesn't go anywhere. I would say you really can skip this. Nothing particularly good happens. I mean, this is an interesting cover in that it's like Moon Knight with Wolverine claws and a Spider-Man hand and a Captain America shield, and the composition is great, but it's kind of like, why does that exist? What does it have to do with Moon Knight? Then, sorry, the variants came in very small. I have to regularize the size when I do this next time. It's all live and learn. We have a Brian Hitch cover with him and Captain America. It's one of those Hitch covers where everything is like too big and too long, and it feels like he like has a really bad grasp of anatomy, which is always sad to see from Hitch. Then we have a Humberto Ramos cover with Spider-Man and Moon Knight. I had to drop Spider-Man repeatedly because I think Humberto Ramos in this period is so ugly. This is definitely one of my least favorite covers we have seen the entire time. Then we have Moon Knight looming over Wolverine. So you see they did a cover with each of these characters that he is associated with. I actually think this might be a Mark Tex cover. It's fine, I guess. I mean, it's actually pretty good. It's pretty good. And then we have another, this was a second printing cover of Maleev here doing, oh gosh, I wish I had a way to show this to you bigger. Let me see if I can figure out how to show it to you bigger. Because this is a really, really iconic Maleev cover. And I think it deserves to be seen in its full glory here. So let me see if I can do that for you. It might break everything. If it breaks everything, I'm not doing it. Okay, how can we do this? Okay, I've got a plan. We're going to open a new tab, and then we're going to drag it into the tab. Yeah, that is pretty cool. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe this series is a 2011 series, not a 2010 series. 2011. But yeah, that's actually iconic. It looks like almost like Sinkovich, but I think it's Malev. But yeah, I mean, this is probably the best cover we've seen the entire time. I love the convention of making his body all black and just letting the white do it. I love the white kind of like fading out as it's been like stamped onto the page. I love when we can see the medium, like we could see that it's been drawn or painted with something and there's texture to it. To me, that's really, really exciting. Actually, probably my favorite cover we've seen this entire time. Isn't that the way? I always think that that's interesting when there's variant covers or like second printing covers and they're like the best one. So now Bendis starts having Moon Knight go on his dissociative identity adventures. I think maybe he's on the West Coast. Here he is holding the head of Ultron. Again, all of these Malev. Oh, we missed one because it was so tiny. It's another Spider-Man standing in front of Moon Knight. The Spider-Man is decent, but like, who cares? Okay, let's continue from there. So again, Malev, really, really hard to miss with the Malev cover. For me, they're all going to be some of the best covers that we've seen this entire time. I love he's doing like an Alas Poor Yorick with Ultron's skull. So cool. Here we see him against Bullseye again. Here's only the second time that we haven't seen Moon Knight on a cover. But I just love that we're being like face down with Bullseye. Actually, this is one of the most iconic Bullseye covers of all time. So like, can we even say that it's one of the most iconic Moon Knight covers since it doesn't have Moon Knight on it, but Bullseye is so great. Here again, I love the convention of the white cowl and the black suit. I love this. It's so different. Usually when we see him perched on a building or a chimney or something, we see him on the corner of it and he's like hanging into the space. Here he's on the top of it. There's space all around it for us to see, which is kind of filled up with the ghostly tendrils of his cape. We've got the whole full moon behind him. This cover is absolutely outstanding. I think the only thing that keeps me from saying it's iconic is I don't know if his black costume is as iconic as his white costume. And here it's harder to buy that it's all just silhouetted in darkness because we see some of it with edge lighting from the moon. So the light is hitting it. And so I just think it's not quite as recognizable as Moon Knight, but I still really love it. Here is Moon Knight as Combo Man, right? Not really. I mean, it's an absolutely gorgeous cover. I don't think it has anything really to do with Moon Knight whatsoever, but I mean, just the cover and the way all the different pieces of them fit together here by Malev is just absolutely outstanding. Love, love, love it. Again, you can entirely skip this run. There's nothing about it you need to know or remember. It is rarely referenced. This is another one which is him standing in the middle of a bunch of new Avengers. I hate when a bunch of heads are together and then there's some random person at a different size. I don't think the heads are really good looking. This is for me the worst cover in this run and I really do not enjoy looking at it. We're going to put it way down here. Then we have one of his foes in this run. Again, a rare cover without Moon Knight, but the cape, look how good the cape is. And I think that might be Ant-Man's mask in the background. So this is actually I mean, as an illustration, this is absolutely outstanding, but he's not on it. So I don't think we could say he's iconic. Here's an iconic cover. Him swinging out into the night. The whole cape behind him. I feel like Malev is like really tributing Sinkovich a lot here because Sinkovich has a classic run of Moon Knight covers. I love that we can see like some structure in the background. Is it scaffolding? Is it a bridge? I don't know, but it's kind of like with the moon below him, which is such a funny angle to think about that we're like so close right under his butt that he almost looks higher than the moon from our perspective. Is this iconic? This might be iconic. I don't know. This is pretty cool. I guess there's something a little weird about like the turn of his foot on his knee and like why is it in front of his face and like the way his cape is like merged into the moon. It just feels like this is like the last draft before something that could be a little bit better and cleaner, but boy, I do love it. So we're going to put it pretty high, but I can accept that there's a couple of problems with it. That's something I can understand. And I could acknowledge. Okay. So then, this to me is iconic. Even because, let's talk about it. All of this ghostly white, the whole cover. He's in his shroud, his cowl, but it's not just his whole costume. It's kind of just like a poncho. It's a snuggie that he's wearing of Moon Knight. And he's tearing it off. And then beneath it, his skin is all this like Dr. Manhattan, like midnight blue. We can see like his neck and the sinews and the clavicle. I absolutely love this. This is one of the first Moon Knight covers that comes into my brain if I think about Moon Knight, because I love the idea of him trying to like break out of being Moon Knight. Like that to me is so interesting. And I don't think that this is so specific to this run that it like doesn't work as a cover kind of on its own. Like I think you could have this image by itself and it still very much says Moon Knight. So Super Job saying about this one, it looks like he's dragging the moon behind him. Yeah. And Moon Knight in that dark blue is very striking. And then we come to the final 2 issues of the Bendis run. This one with, I forget what characters this is. Actually, final 3 issues. Maybe Echo. It's just, again, I like the bridge, and I know that they actually are in proportion to each other, but I don't understand why she's like sleeping and she's like leaning back, but is she hanging? I don't know. There's just something really awkward about the composition of this one that has always bugged me. Then again, the Sienkiewicz gave us this trope early on of kind of Moon Knight looking through like one door in the background. Here we see all of his other identities looking down on him. It's composed just fine. It's just not like the most exciting cover for me because again, I don't really care about this multiple identity stuff. But then we come to the final issue of this run, and this, for me, this is probably the most iconic Moon Knight cover of all time for me. So just, you know, it's his hand holding up the crescent, but then it's him centered in the crescent, leaping through the crescent on the moon behind. I mean, maybe it's like putting a hat on a hat. It's like the moon and a crescent and Moon Knight on the moon on a crescent, but it's just, to me, this, and then his cape behind him, which is another crescent filling up the top of the crescent of the moon. To me, this kind of is just like everything Moon Knight in one issue. I think if I had a poster on my wall of Moon Knight, this would maybe be the Moon Knight I would look for. I love that the moon is his cape, right? Like the inside of his cape in the background is the moon. That works so well for me. So this puts an end to Moon Knight prior to Marvel Now. Marvel Now starts at the very end of 2012 after Avengers vs. X-Men. And then all the launch titles are happening. They start coming out in October of 2012. They continue through the middle of the year of 2013. Moon Knight is not in one of those launch titles. He's also not in Hickman's Avengers. So it kind of feels like he's lost for a few years. We see him pop up in a couple of places, but nowhere really significant. Then in 2014, I don't know why these are so much smaller, but here we are. Then in 2014, we start this new run of Moon Knight. Let's see what happens. Oh boy, did I mess everything up? I might have messed everything up. No, that'll be fine. That'll be okay. It's just I can't get it back to that smaller magnification once I do this. So now we'll be screwed, but that's okay. So this is the first run of this 2014 run. It started off by Warren Ellis with Declan Shalvey, who they had collaborated already together along with colors Jordie Bellaire on, I think maybe letter of Matt Hollingsworth, I could be making that up, in Injection, which is a very cool X-Files-y series from Ellis from Image. I love it. I have one of the first non-Marvel oversized hardcovers I ever bought, actually, because I love that series so much. This is iconic. Now, I will say all of these covers have this bold title treatment where it's just on black, kind of just like this big movie poster takes up half of the space. So we're not getting kind of these full-size comic covers, but just as a Moon Knight image, just his face, we don't even see the detail of the costume, just his face with the crescent on it. I think that this is, I don't know why I can't say crescent and I keep saying crescent, but there you go. But yeah, this is absolutely one of the best Moon Knight covers of all time, possibly the most iconic one of all time. I mean, like, this is, what else can you say? I mean, this is an absolute banger of a cover. So then we have a bunch of variant covers for this run, none of which are really in the feel of this run. They're just cool images. This first one actually is really pretty awesome. I love the kind of logo ghosted behind him. I love him holding up the crescent to the moon. I love the silvery white of his costume. This to me is actually, this may also be iconic. Like, I think this is even better than the one Avenge the Moon Knights with him and the guns, because it's like so him. Now this next one, I am in love with this one, and this is actually a Sienkiewicz cover. So I think I'm going to see, can I drag this? Yeah, this is Sienkiewicz. I mean, just being a master, showing this brutalized, bloody Moon Knight on the throne in the Egyptian context, hieroglyphics on the wall behind him, then this kind of like light spilling out of him, making a carpet in front of him, which has the logo on it. I mean, this is the master at work. I've seen some of you say in the chat, very few of these even hold a candle to the Sienkiewicz covers from the original Moon Knight run. This to me is it's crazy to me that they haven't put this on the cover of something. Maybe this could be like an alternate cover if we ever get this omnibus. This is just absolutely stunning. Then we get one of these baby covers from Scotty Young. I mean, it's fine. I like the cheesy smiling moon. I don't always love covers where everything is just piled up in the middle in like a big totem pole of stuff. I like to like have my eye carried around. And then there are Marvel animal covers, and for some reason Moon Knight is a hippopotamus, and so he's bending the flagpole he's jumping on. I don't understand. That's an F for me. Okay, now back to this actual run. So this has never been collected in oversize, and there's a really interesting run because 3 writers write in quick succession. They basically each do an arc each, but the arcs are not really arcs. They're kind of like individual stories told that connect together, and so many of the covers are just so iconic. I mean, here, it's turned sideways. You can see the buildings are actually rising up over the ground over the right, so the moon, it doesn't actually make sense. Like the moon wouldn't be turned that way. What is actually shattered? It doesn't matter. Just the cover itself is so compelling. It kind of draws your eye across of it. It kind of just makes a shape, like this kind of darted shape on its own, and then you start getting into the details. Declan Shalvey, who I don't always love every single time, is just so efficient with his line work and kind of puts the bare minimum of lines on a cover, so that is really exciting to me. Now, this is one of the first times actually that we've got a representation of Khonshu on a cover. We really haven't seen him a whole lot until this point, but I love this like creepy, rickety bird. It's not like the best Moon Knight of all time, but clearly it's Moon Knight. He's got the cowl, he's got the crescent in his eye. It's clearly Khonshu because he's got that kind of mask shape. I mean, this is really, really fun. Really, really outstanding. Then we get this one, Moon Knight, who's kind of dissolving into a sea of mushrooms. Clearly that's a little bit story specific, but it's fun to have Shalvey doing the color covers, also knowing that he's doing the interiors. I don't think it's the most iconic Moon Knight cover of all time, but it is certainly a fun one for me. The 2 opposing sentiments on Scotty Young. Young does nothing for me, saying goody. And then Cedric and Ellen saying, I printed that cover. It's on my wall at work. And James Moore saying, all the Shalvey covers from this run are iconic. I love the design sense. Then we have this one. I forget if the whole issue is like this. It might be, where it's almost like a side scroller and we like see him walking through a building as he goes, kind of like that really cool Nightwing issue. I don't think that this one is as iconic as the others, just because there's not really a lot to draw your eye across it, and he's just got that him and that crescent anchored in the top corner. There's nothing bad about it, but in terms of the Shalvey covers, it's just maybe a little bit less exciting than a lot of the other ones. So now here we get kind of the negative version of that first one. And honestly, there's just not a lot to react to here. Like, it's fun that it's his eyes on black instead of his eyes on white, but there's nothing that even really says Moon Knight about the image itself, only if you combine it with the title treatment. I do like that there's like some black smudges in the title treatment. That's fun that it's not just a flat white, but it's it just doesn't really, it's not anything specific to me. Okay, so now we're into the second run of this, which is Brian Wood. This is always really fun. It's an interesting cover convention where you fill up the whole cover with dark and then you just give us tiny slice of light. And here we see him looking up from an alleyway, jumping between 2 buildings in his Mr. Knight persona. I just think I would like it if the cover, sometimes when you have a cover like this and I'm like backing away to try to see it from farther away, sometimes you realize that it's a shape, like it's a letter or like it's implying a face or something. Here it kind of just feels like it's just happening to us. Like it doesn't, or like it's a keyhole. It just doesn't feel like there's a lot of planning involved in this composition for me. Okay, this one I really, really love. Anytime we're kind of doing this gridded Brady Bunch thing where we're putting things into grid and it's a single image, but we've broken it up into the grid, but then we're playing like 15, 16 puzzle and we're putting other things on top of the grid that are, so it's his face from several perspectives and then across him. That to me is just like a design element that is always compelling and I really, really enjoy. I don't know that it's like the best cover of all time, but it's a very, very fun Moon Knight cover. So here, this cover to me is iconic. We have him in his Mr. Knight persona. He's on the couch as a psychiatrist's office. We see the psychiatrist talking to him, but then we see this skull looming behind him. We see different versions of him from the past, kind of ghostly on top of that. I love anytime we get purple in with Moon Knight. I think that is like a really, really cool motif. I don't know. This maybe, I just love the simple black and white. I love the detail of his dress shoes and the way that he's wearing that suit. I think, you know, obviously having him in a psychiatrist's office is a little bit on the nose, but I think because of the way it's drawn with the psychologist kind of looming over him and then all of the others, Moon Knight's looming over him in turn, I just think there's something really interesting about it. Maybe it's not iconic. Maybe it's like on the second row, but anything with purple and Moon Knight, you know, I do love a purple on a cover. No pinks yet, though, which is usually my real fave. So we're still in the Brian Woods run here. This is kind of just like a crescent moon over a city. I mean, it's fine. I like how the crescent is also echoed in the line of the building, but like, what are we looking at? That's not really a comic cover. You know, it's kind of just like an image. Okay. Next, we have him against a whole group of people. Now, this is more exciting than that him versus the group of people we looked at earlier. First of all, the bold orange background, him in bright white. Then he's like smashing one of these SWAT people. The SWAT people form this arc around him, so there's room for us to kind of swirl around and move towards the center. And that swirl is being continued by him bashing one of them in the head and kind of that all coming off in pieces. I think compositionally, this is a really, really successful cover. It's, you know, I don't think that Moon Knight fighting the police is necessarily like what he always does, so I don't think it's like an iconic cover of all time, but just in terms of like being an attractive Moon Knight cover to look at, I absolutely agree it is. All right, now we're getting into something interesting because now we're kind of merging the illustration part of the cover with the title treatment part of the cover. So he's just a white silhouette, then it bleeds down into the title treatment, and then it kind of turns into these feathery scratches at the bottom. I don't know if, so we got to consider this whole cover at the same time because the art is unified with the logo. I think it's very effective. I don't think it's like the best Moon Knight cover of all time, but if you're looking for something really clean and bold that has like a cool design element to it, absolutely works for me. This run, by the way, is an easy run to pick up and read. It would be great if we get it. It never had an oversized hardcover because it was 3 different creators, and also 2 of those creators are a little bit on the outs at this point in terms of Warren Ellis and Brian Wood, who've done some questionable and unremarkable things in their personal lives that have made them a little bit less attractive as creators for Marvel to collect. I still would really like to see this collected. I think you could collect it along with Bendis because that's 12 issues. This is 14 issues, and that kind of takes us up until the next run that has Lemire and Smallwood on it. But it also, you can really read any of these issues. Just like pick one up in a comic book store, open it up in Marvel Unlimited. It's a really good run, and even though it's a hair different from classic Moon Knight, I really think it like gives you a lot of what Moon Knight is. Here he is, just perched on a ladder. I don't know that there's really anything particularly remarkable about him just perched on a ladder. I mean, compositionally it's fine, but, and now we're into Cullen Bunn writing it. I don't know, why are these next 2 so small? I don't know. I saved them all off of Marvel's website. I don't know why they're so small. Here's a bunch of dogs braying at a moon. Really not doing anything for me. Here's Moon Knight's feet and then something under the bed. That's kind of fun. But again, like, I don't know if that's really... All right, so now we got to zoom back out. Way out. Okay, there we go. See, I told you eventually they were going to get big again. I guess maybe I can hit reload. Oh gosh, what if we're at the beginning again? Oh no! It took us all the way to the beginning. All right, this is a thing that I will learn for next time, and we'll have it better next time. However, Moon Knight kind of in a field of explosions. He's all the way off to one side. There's really nothing to look at on the other side. That one's not successful for me. Moon Knight as a stained glass window in a church, but the window is breaking. I think we've gotten so abstract at this point that I'm like, what are we even doing? Like, I know that they all relate to what's interior to me, interior in these issues, but I just don't really understand it. So I just want to get a comment from Comics Explained. Holy crow, Crushing Krisis is a live stream. I do, usually every Sunday. Thank you so much for stopping by. Comics Explained saying I have no idea how helpful my reading orders have been. That is very, very kind. And actually, I did see you for a couple of minutes on Comics Pals yesterday. I was watching that while I was cooking dinner last night. Very, very cool of you to stop by. Maybe we should do a thing together sometime. Okay, so as a reminder, I have never done this format before. It is totally made up in my mind, and who even knows where it's going, or if we would ever want to see me go through this many covers again, so this could be a limited time engagement. But here's the thing. So now we have crossed over the Secret Wars barrier. That Moon Knight 2014 series ends. Secret Wars happens. Now we're in All New, All Different Marvel. And so in All New, All Different Marvel, not one of the original launch titles, but about a year into it, we get a new Moon Knight #1. I believe the series is 2016, yes. And it is launched by Jeff Lemire, pretty hot at this point off of things like Sweet Tooth. He had done Animal Man at DC. He had just done some Hawkeye that wasn't very well liked at Marvel. And Greg Smallwood, who I absolutely love Greg Smallwood's art. And obviously this is a super iconic cover. I mean, it's all white, which immediately is eye-catching in the stands. It's him in white on white, which I think is really, really cool. Him in a straight jacket, which like maybe it's a little bit on the nose. Like, yes, this character is a crazy character, but and I do wish that there was something else Moon going on, but he's just got the crescent stamped in blood on his forehead. I mean, that's a pretty cool image. I don't know if it quite makes it to the icon level for me because again, like I motif wise, I keep looking at the shadow, thinking is that shadow meant to be a shape or are we meant to see something in it? But it's just like shadow by the motivated lighting. So he's being really blown out by the light on the left. It's a great cover. It's a great cover. Okay. So then we have one of these action figure covers. I think it's fine. But the thing is that he's not really even fully in the Mr. Knight getup on this series. So it's kind of like, okay, great. You did an action figure. I think it would have been cooler. It only has one other head. How are you going to do an action figure cover of Moon Knight and not have him have 3 different heads? It's right there for you. Okay. Then we have this one of, let's see, where are we? This was a cover for Bazinga Comics. It's him in front of like a King Tut sort of statue and somebody's shooting a gun at him, but he's throwing the crescents out. That's pretty fun. You know, well composed. I love the crescent of his cape taking up so much of the space there. I actually really like that one. I think that really like that really gives me Moon Knight in a really way. So this next one is one of those hip hop covers that is emulating a classic hip hop album. I do think they really get the little caricature of his face really good here. I think it's really attractive and fun, so I think that's a good one. And then this next one, which is a cover by Rudy. I mean, it's so creepy. He's like bloody. He's screaming. He's got this sheet draped over him. I think this actually really speaks to what's going on in this run. I don't know if I could call it iconic, but it's like a really cool, memorable cover. And again, it's always sad when this stuff just is only ever a variant cover because it's like, you know, like really cool. So I'm moving some stuff around. At the end, we'll kind of see what I've put as the best Moon Knight covers of all time. Okay, so now we are back to the actual run of Lemire and Smallwood. This has been released in an oversized hardcover. So if you're trying to do all oversized hardcover on your shelf, you would have that Bendis, all the omnibuses, and then you would have the Bendis oversized hardcover. Then you would have a gap for oversized. You'd need 3 trades of Wood, or Ellis, and then Wood, and then Vaughn. And then we'll be back to oversized if you pick this up. It's also been in a paperback complete collection. Since it's such an iconic single creator run with Lemire, there's some question of like, would you ever combine it in omnibus with anything else? Unfortunately, Marvel doesn't really do deluxe as something that they like reprint and keep in print the way they do with omnibuses, the way that DC does with deluxes, because obviously this whole little section we're in is 4 deluxes. It's the Bendis Deluxe, which they could reprint, and then it's the Ellis, Wood, and Bunn Deluxe, which never existed and should, and then it's this Deluxe oversized hardcover, which they could reprint, and then it's the one that comes after, which we'll get to in a minute. But since there's no mechanism for that to happen at Marvel, we have to keep talking about, oh, would they put them all in omnibus, which is kind of annoying. Look, I am a easy mark for Greg Smallwood. I'm obsessed with him. I love this like Moon Knight on a cosmic background with the crescent, the glowing eyes, the triangle. I mean, it's just so cool, so memorable. Again, Smallwood not afraid to play with like all of the white on the cover. Looking at this one, just this, all the bandages around the skull. I don't know if this screams Moon Knight as much, but it's a very, very cool image. And again, I love anytime that you're using white on the cover and the white kind of just like fades off and there's no lines lining the white. To me, that's really exciting. Here we see Moon Knight and his love, Marlene, as she's kind of being swept away as sand on the wind. We've seen that trope many, many times. But again, I love that it's on white. It's just dissolving to white. I think it's interesting that she's dissolving, which is very much a part of the plot of this comic rather than him. Usually because of his identity issues, it's like him dissolving. So, but I just, again, the Smallwood is such a gorgeous, gorgeous illustrator. Absolutely love that. Okay, this one is, come on. I mean, I love that he's peeling down his face to show the mask underneath. Look at the efficiency of the line work on him. It's just in this gray line. It's almost just like a convention sketch. It's so lightweight. Nothing's like rendered at all, but it still absolutely works because that's how simple his his actual costume is. I mean, this has got to be one of the best ones ever. And the really immediately, without even knowing the story, without ever telling you anything about what's happening on the inside, immediately tells you that the question is, what's the real identity? Him as Mark Spector or him as Moon Knight, right? You don't even need anybody to articulate that for you. It's just obvious from the cover. Like, it just immediately screams that to you. I mean, so effective, such a great idea. I'm sure it's an idea that's been done before, but I love also that it's still playing with the idea of light. Like, clearly he's being lit from above and to the left because the whole line of his head is blown out and the shoulder is blown out. So even with this very, very basic light rendering, efficiency of line, there's still like a light source. That's just so amazing to me. This is just one of the best covers. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about this Lemire run. Richard B. saying, these Lemire covers are my favorite as a collective so far. And Goody saying, I wish I enjoyed the Dream series more, but it disappointed me after Ellis. So that's an important thing to know about the series. It's very much one playing with his identity. And the whole idea is he crazy, or all of these things happening to him real? And it's happening on several layers. So there are things we know are obviously fictional because he's obviously imagining them, but it's kind of like trying to find the bottom of where the imagination is and we cross over into reality. Is he in a mental institution? Is he just wandering around the city randomly beating people up and then like falling on the ground thinking he's being tied up in a straitjacket? I think it gets a little repetitive, but I'm not the biggest Jeff Lemire fan to begin with. So a lot of people love this run. And honestly, even if Lemire's writing annoys you, and it does sometimes annoy me, I just think the small would work on the interiors, which is every bit as good as these covers really work. Here we see him like he's in his own movie of his life. Like he's standing there waiting to be put in, and there's just a clapper in front of him, and it says, you know, Moon Knight on the clapper. And of course, eventually he does get a Marvel TV series. I just think, I know like him being in films is not the biggest part of his identity in the comic book, but there is one of his personas that sometimes is super rich and famous, and I just think it's amazing as a cover. And I love the hands reaching in from one side to put the clapper right in the middle. This is one where the symmetry of the cover works, especially because the hands gives you one asymmetrical element. Here we see Werewolf by Night howling at the moon. Of course, Moon Knight originally appeared in Werewolf by Night, and like I'm never going to turn down Greg Smallwood drawing Werewolf by Night. And unlike the random skull cover, which I keep moving down because it's just like a random skull, this one really does say Moon Knight to me, because we know that Werewolf by Night is related to Moon Knight, and also he's howling at the earth. Do you see that? It's not the moon, but it is the earth in the background. So I think that's pretty cool. Maybe not an A because there's nothing actually Moon Knight about it, but it's pretty cool. I'm starting to rethink some of these choices. I think we got to move her down because like, what does she have to do with anything? I think that cover of number 2 of him on the chimney is probably a lot better than I gave it credit for at the point. I think the Alas Poor Yorick with Ultron's head is maybe not as good as I thought it was. And the Combo Man cover, I feel like we're kind of downgraded anything that's like a cool cover, but it's not like Moon Knight specific. So I think we got to move Combo Man down. Okay. So again, we're playing with the idea of, is he a film in his head? I think this is a Jake Lockley persona. That's the cabbie. Just really cool, and a nice break from all of these super white covers. And that cover itself in the background kind of is similar to him as we saw him in the movie shot previously, but now it's been adapted into a movie cover. And because of the treatment of the logo they're using here, it's a treatment of the logo from the Sienkiewicz years. And so there's just like a lot of layers to it that are really pleasing and fun. I think that is like a really fun Moon Knight cover. Here we see him on the moon kind of discovering his 3 different personas there as kind of ruins. Or I guess he's not in the moon, he's just in the mountain, because the moon is in the background. I think that's a good one. I don't know if it's... I like anything that shows off his 3 personas. I don't know if that's like the most interesting one of all time. Okay, this one I love. Now it's rebranded with a number 1 on it just because this was part of like the next phase of Marvel, all new, all different Marvel. And but it's still the Lemire run, and it's still continuing the Lemire run. It's just like an extra arc to pick up from. Now we've traded the white in the background for gray. I love this. So we have Khonshu personified, which we have not seen a lot up till this point. He's looming over little kid Mark Spector or Jake Lockley. He's got a yarmulke on his head. You know, being Jewish is a big part of his character. We see that he's been drawing things on the ground, including we see the earth and a moon. And just, you know, canonically to this point, we always thought that Khonshu was only looming over him when he's killed as a mercenary, when he's in Egypt and they're kind of pilfering something and he decides to defend the archaeologist that he's with. But like this kind of casts the idea of Moon Knight in a totally different way. For me, for moi, this is one of the best Moon Knight covers of all time. I mean, just again, I want to see Khonshu on a cover. Like, I care about seeing Khonshu on a cover and him looming over the young Moon Knight, shadowing his body like he's eclipsing him, and then the obvious communication that this is a Jewish character, one of Marvel's biggest Jewish characters, along with The Thing and Kitty Pryde. I just think that this is like a really, really amazing cover. Bear's Lair just stopping by to say hello and happy Father's Day to all of the fathers in the crowd. Superjob saying they've been rebooting Moon Knight in the middle of the runs for a while now. Well, I mean, this is a convention we've seen as late as in the 70s when Superman did Kryptonite Nevermore. They put a #1 on that cover, even though it's like, what is it, like 300 and something, 200 and something. So just putting a 1 really big on the cover to say that it's the beginning of an arc is something companies have always tried to find a way to do. Okay, so now we still are in the Smallwood era. Here we have a version of Moon Knight on the run. I do kind of like these kind of sliced up, mixed and matched, juxtaposed things that are a little bit unaligned. I don't know if this is the most exciting one to me with him and his dog tags. I mean, clearly it's making a reference to his past, but I just think as a cover, we've seen several covers that are just a lot more thrilling and exciting than that. Probably one of my lesser favorite Smallwood covers. This one I really, really like, though. Just all of these people with guns and bayonets, and Moon Knight kind of just crouched on this gray field. Like, where is he even? We don't have any information to put him in context, but that works because this is all such a dreamy arc. And he's like, hello there. You like it just that really, really is effective to me. Then we get a little bit of Bushwhacker or Bushman at the end here, who's a very fun character, but I feel like he always just comes off looking like a character from another comic because he's not that iconic. It always looks like Chapel from Image for me. So it's a great cover. I mean, really, and just like so much more rendered than the other covers here. I think it's fine, but it's just not iconic all time. And then we get kind of an echo of that #2 cover here with Moon Knight as almost this tribunal with this floating Khonshu head. He's on a throne at the top of this, you know, in this spacey background with all of the Moon Knights, all of his various identities in front of him fighting. This, to me, is an all-time great Moon Knight cover. I think it just says everything you need to know about Moon Knight while still being like a little bit abstract and a little bit specific about this run. Absolutely love this one. Okay. Now we come to a run that probably is one of the lesser known Moon Knight runs, which I really started out enjoying, and then it got a little bit weird. So this is the same run as that run. It's still the 2017 run, but we reached Marvel Legacy in 2017, and Marvel Legacy gave legacy numbering to any of their series that had been running long enough and were connected to an old series that we could just number them with the continuous numbering from the original series. So Moon Knight, instead of going to issue 15 here, because that last issue was 14. By the way, can we just appreciate how great the cover treatments were on these? Just that giant logo that fills up the entire thing, and then a giant number. I mean, they really broke it out of the normal Marvel look so much so that they really did look like Image comics or like movie posters or something. I love the big number on a cover. I think that's great. I wish more covers would do that. But now we go back to kind of the very normal Marvel look, and we get Moon Knight kind of back, unified, back in New York. And this run by Bemis, what is his name? Max Bemis. It's a very strange run because it starts out kind of really placing him back within his world of New York, within his continuity. That's really, really successful. I really enjoy that about it. But also, Bemis is kind of not the most stable human being in real life. And as he writes about Moon Knight's dissociative identity disorder and his psychological challenges, you kind of start to feel that we're in a therapy session for Bemis while it's happening, which is interesting in a way, but also really starts to get disturbing towards the end of the run. That said, I love this run because it's, to me, Moon Knight needs to be like a little bit weird. There needs to be something like a little strange and transgressive about Moon Knight for it to really work for me. And this run absolutely hit that mark. I love him hanging from the water tower, looking at this emblazoned eye on a building across from him, being like, oh hell, we're gonna meet something new. And I love that this run actually introduces a new bad guy for him. I love when writers like swing big and put a new villain in that's of their own creation and kind of like is like, you know, not just recycling the old stuff and not just fighting against kind of generic army guys. That really, really works for me. Then we have a number of variant covers here for this run. Let me see. So this one is by Johnson. It's kind of, I think this is actually that villain because he's like always on fire. It's fine. I like it. It's kind of very image comic-y, but it's not particularly memorable other than the colors. We're going to put it down there somewhere. Okay, then we have this floating head cover, which is the thing they were doing, which they were just called like headshot covers. I fucking hate a floating head cover, so that's right to the bottom for me. Especially because like it does have all of the renderings of all these other Marvel heroes in the background, but if you're gonna do a floating head cover, don't you want to have it be all other Moon Knights? Like, isn't that kind of the gag? And then we have what was a trading card cover, so this wrapped around to the back and there were stats on it. It's fine. I mean, it's actually a pretty cool Moon Knight image, but I don't like how his body just goes all to black in the middle and you totally lose the definition there. Not really all that thrilling. Okay, so now we come back to the actual run. Moon Knight kind of like, again, we're getting into, I think is this Rachel Rosenberg yet coloring? I don't know if it is, but we're getting into him having that glow. You can see it coming off of the edge of his white, that he's kind of like overexposed a little and glowing. That's my favorite rendering of him. I love this version of the suit. I love him splattered in blood. I love that there's something looming behind him. I think this is really, really fun. It makes me want to read the comic, which is what a cover is for. Then we get him fighting this new bad guy who he was like the Sun King or like Sun Man. I'm trying to remember what his name was, but he was a really good villain for Moon Knight. And he also was like really kind of not mentally all there himself. So I mean, you know, this is a fine cover. I don't think there's anything particularly extraordinary about it, but I like seeing a cover where he's fighting the person he's going to be fighting on the inside. Okay, this obviously homaging, I think the painting is called American Gothic, very, very famous painting. We see the farmhouse on fire behind him. Moon Knight seems to think everything is fine. I think that is Marlene, maybe, being like, what is going on? I think that is really, really fun. It's kind of plays into the uncanniness of Moon Knight, like, what, like that he would be like, this is fine, everything's fine, the house is on fire, that's fine. I just think that really, there's something that really, really works for me, and I love an homage to a piece of classic art. Now we have him swimming with the fishes. I love this. We've never seen Moon Knight in water this entire time. It's the only cover we've seen that has him placed in water. I love that he's like got sharks all around him that are like these albino sharks. Very, very cool. Yeah, I think this is a really enjoyable cover. Now, during this run, what's happening is he's facing off against multiple enemies, not just the Sun King guy, but multiple ones. And we're starting to find out that he has locked things away in his own memory that he doesn't even realize that he's locked away. And so he's kind of like realizing there's stuff that he has caused himself to forget because his own identities have conspired against themselves, which is so, so interesting. So now we see him in the jungle. I just get a kick out of this one. It's not like the best cover ever, but it's really fun because how often do we see him kind of in this like perched gargoyle pose where it's in broad daylight? There's just something so, so fun about that to me. I really like it. Then we switch to a different cover artist here, and here is like seeing like a little kid version of him again with Moon Knight looming over him with these kind of like creepy tendrils and grasping hands. It almost reminds me of a cover of like The Spectre. I do really enjoy that. I don't think I need cover after cover of it, but I do think there's something very distinctly creepy about it. Same thing with this one. I think this one's even more successful for me. All these red hands, why are they red? We don't know. Kind of grabbing at him and us just seeing his face with like the two little eye slits on the inside. That to me is very, very successful and it's very evocative. I think, I like a cover that evokes something and makes you imagine like, ooh, what must be going on the inside of that comic? Very, very cool. Moon Knight floating in his brain tissue. I mean, maybe a little on the nose and I feel like you could have done more with the squiggles. Like, I don't know if I want them to spell Moon Knight necessarily, but it kind of just is a background. There's only one or two squiggles that actually go over his body, so it's fine. It's just, I feel like more could have been done with that to make it a little more exciting. Then we have Moon Knight's head on a platter being served by all these weird punks. I mean, that's fine, but it's not really a very attractive cover. I mean, okay, Moon Knight's being served up in a platter, but there's like nothing about it that makes me go, ooh, I want to read that. However, this one I think is my favorite cover in this run. Moon Knight in front of this, like, this maze. The maze is all concentric circles. He's got his crescent is glowing. The eyes are just little slits. I don't know if there's anything particularly iconic Moon Knight about the maze itself, but as a design element to give interest all around his head and kind of draw your eye to the center of the cover, that is a really cool design, and I think it's kind of up there amongst some of the best ones that we've seen. Then we have this, very eldritch horror thing in the background with all of these tentacles and things that he's wrestling off. I mean, it's fine, but again, it's very specific to the plot of that issue. Him perched, now this I like. He's perched on the edge of a roof. We've seen this 100 times already. The crescent's covered in blood. His eyes are red. Then there's more red. The red coming from the window, this very spectral red. It's motivated lighting. We're actually seeing the red cast against the side of the column. It's not in his cape, but is lighting up the whole underside of his body. There's a gargoyle at the top imitating his pose. That gargoyle cutting into the moon. And lots of space for us to look down and to the right. They've actually, put the logo exactly in a space that it could fit here. I think that this is clever. Like, I want to see people use the space well. I want to see things that are compositionally interesting, and I want to see something that makes me wonder what's going to happen inside of the issue. So I think this one really, really cool. So then that series ends, and we go on a little bit of a break here as well. Just a couple comments in here. The Inception, looking at the maze one, and Nick loves the red window. So we have a couple of years where there's no Moon Knight. So he briefly is in this one issue of Marvel Comics Presents. It doesn't quite fit here in reading order, but he is Mr. Knight. I think it actually might fit between the Mr. Knight stuff and the Lemire run, but it's just like one story. I think this is a Stegman cover. I can tell because I hate it. Who are these characters? What is their relation to each other? The spoiler is there's no relation to each other because they're not even on the same story in the inside of the comic. But I mean, it's not even a very good Mr. Knight. It just looks like such like a dweeby cartoony version of it when he's like usually so iconically underlined, and then Wolverine between his legs. I just think it's an absolutely hideous cover. This I want to draw your attention to. So this is an annual. It was part of the annuals in, I want to say 2019. Let me confirm that for you. Yeah, 2019. So it wasn't really part of a run. It was just a standalone annual. It was part of this Acts of Evil, which was meant to reference the original Acts of Vengeance from the late 80s, which was not quite a line ride crossover, but more like everybody's villains were fighting other heroes. So here we mash up Moon Knight against Kang. I love, love, love this cover. It's an extraordinary cover. I love them both leaping for the scepter, and it actually is, that's what the plot is. They're both like leaping for this thing that controls time, and they're moving throughout time every time they kind of touch it or interact with each other. So they're like in the Old West, they're in the early 1900s, they're going through time, and it's fun to see Moon Knight facing off against Kang, because that's like not a typical combo that you would make, which is absolutely the whole point of this series of annuals. So I love this cover because I just think it's really fun, colorful, well illustrated, but also I just love this issue. Like Moon Knight and Kang, there's just something so fun about that to me. I just lost it. I dragged it somewhere. I don't see it. I dragged it somewhere and it went away. All right, well, we'll have to relocate it later because we got to move on. But I swear I just had it in my hot little fingers. And then it disappeared. And there's so many, we're up to hundreds of Moon Knight covers, and now I can't find it. All right, oh, there it is. There it is. At the bottom of B, I think it might be a little bit better than that. I think it's better than the Brain one. The Brain one, the more I'm thinking about it, why did I put it that high? I didn't even like it. And that headshot one wasn't that impressive either. All right. Okay, so now we're going to have to play the Zoom game again. And hopefully I don't break it forever and ever, because then we're going to have to scroll all the way back down. So then Moon Knight does have another series where he's basically co-starring with Conan and this thing called The Serpent War. So it's not on Marvel Unlimited because Conan is a license. And actually, this didn't just have Conan. It had all of the Robert E. Howard characters united kind of across different times. And Moon Knight is really the only Marvel present day player, so he's really the co-star, and it's a shame because this is never going to fit into an omnibus because well, I mean, I guess they could, but they have reprinted some Moon Knight stuff in Omnibus, or some Conan stuff in Omnibus, but I just don't know that this is significant enough that they would. This is a really cool action shot of these characters. There's nothing like compositionally wrong with it at all. This one doesn't even have Moon Knight on it, so I don't know. I guess we gotta just give it an F. Because, I mean, we've done okay with other stuff, but it's a serpent, it's Conan, it's actually a fine cover, but like it just doesn't have anything to do with Moon Knight. This one, however, of Moon Knight back to back with what's that guy's name? I loved his comment. Solomon Kane, with kind of Conan's face looming over him. I don't love looming face covers, but I do like Moon Knight back to back with Solomon Kane there. But no, I don't like looming face covers. And then this final one of a bit, I do like covers where everybody's in a big pile of stuff and they're like fending off stuff. And this is of course very Moon Knighty. I mean, it's got like this giant Moon Knight or Khonshu kind of looming over of them. Kind of gives me very movie poster cover. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's and there's no like weirdly out of shape, out of proportion people on it. So I think that one's pretty good. I enjoy that one. Okay. Oh, see, now we messed up because I zoomed in too far and now we got to zoom out. Okay. So now, yeah, oh no, I think I have to reload again. This time we're just going to scroll all the way to the bottom. Boom. And then scroll back up. How about that? Maybe next time I should do it in a couple of different PDFs, and that will help with the sizing as well. Okay, so this is actually an important cadence in Moon Knight, and I'm kind of surprised that it didn't... oh my gosh, there's so many left. I'm surprised that it didn't get collected in this way, but it's still... So this is part of... Oh gosh, did we skip? Oh, no. Okay. This is part of Jason Aaron's run in Avengers, which just got announced for an omnibus, and this is an arc called The Age of Khonshu. It was dumb as shit, but it was Aaron writing Moon Knight, and he never had, and it also launches the Jed MacKay stuff. I really thought maybe they would put this in the beginning of the MacKay omnibus, just like for context, and because, you know, it kind of leads directly, the status quo of this leads directly into the MacKay run, so I was a little bit surprised when they didn't put it in the first MacKay omnibus. It'll, as I said, it'll be in the Avengers by Aaron omnibus. I, again, don't like covers where one thing is out of proportion to all the other things. That really bugs me, so I don't particularly enjoy this cover very much at all. Then we have all the Avengers with Khonshu kind of looming in front of them. That's kind of fun, but not particularly remarkable. Then we have this one, which I really enjoy, Khonshu, but the plot was so dumb. It's like basically Khonshu takes everybody's powers, so it almost like kind of goes back to working with the Bendis version of Moon Knight a little bit, but it is kind of fun to see Khonshu like beating the crap out of Thor, and it's certainly better than some of the composition of some of these other covers we've seen, but it's not particularly remarkable. And then we have him facing off against Black Panther. That's fun, kind of like black against white, but you know, it's just an action cover. There's nothing particularly remarkable about it. And then finally, all the Avengers all punching against Khonshu. I think they all look very awkward here. It's hard to tell even what's happening. Like, or they're all on their own planes, but they almost look like they're in shattered panes of glass. Khonshu is kind of disembodied. I think this one is really unsuccessful. Okay, now we get to what... Oh, I do have a page number at the top of the PDF. Thank you, Only Kane. Okay, so then we come to what everybody's loving right now. And this has been going on since 2021. This is Jed MacKay's run on Moon Knight. It is fantastic. You can absolutely start here. You don't need a lot of information before this. The art on the interiors has been pretty great. The story continues through multiple relaunches, so it's going to take some explaining to take you through all of it. And there are some one-shots that come in between as well. But this starts in 2021 with issues 1 to 30, although they're not all exactly in that order. This one, I mean, this is absolutely what you want from a Moon Knight cover. It is just, you know, so cool, so detailed. It's playing with that David Finch kind of looking. We got way too many lines on this space, kind of like everything looks dirty and grungy. It's actually Steve McNiven, who certainly draws in a very similar style to Finch when he's kind of doing this overload line stuff. There's strikes of lightning everywhere. I think maybe the lightning takes it a little bit over the top for me, but it is a very, very cool cover and absolutely shows Moon Knight kind of at his best. We seem to be breaking the bounds of Tearmaker now. I think we're coming up to how much attention span that these windows have for me and how much attention span I have for this topic. But we still have like 50 MacKay issues to go through, so let's continue. The second printing was just that with a slightly different color. The third printing, I don't know if this is an original illustration, but just something blown up from the interior, because this is the interior artist. I think it's a little awkward. I do like when he's filling up the entire top space of the cover, but it's like not my favorite of all time. So as I'm doing this and we're kind of hitting ones that are not my favorite, I'm thinking the way to do this in the future might be maybe we only pull out the iconic ones. Maybe I just talk about them and ranking them all as like, who cares? Maybe we pull out the most iconic ones and then we only, at the end, we just rank the most icons of the icons. I love this one. I mean, I don't always love the hyper realistic versions of Moonlight because I think it kind of just leans a little bit too toyetic and clean and bright when he's a character that does well when he's grungy. But here him kind of perched in this glowing white that looks very much like a costume you would see him in the MCU. He's on top of this flickering neon sign of a motel. I think that's really, really successful. And it's like pretty iconically Moon Knight. I fucking love this one. This one is Khonshu kind of on this purpley background. He's like lording over us as Khonshu would. This was actually Big Bird Comics. That is the name of the comic store that commissioned this, so it's even more awesome that it's Khonshu looming, looking like a giant bird of death. I love the purple. I love these like stepping out from these kind of like sands. I love his outreached arm. I mean, I just love this. This is everything I want from a Khonshu cover, and I think we've established at this point that I actually do really want to see Khonshu on Moon Knight covers. This almost is iconic to me. It's just such a cool image of Khonshu that just, and it's rendered so well. It's just really cool. So then we have this one with the American flag on it. This is a Captain America variant. I don't know that I really associate Moon Knight with America. And he's got a Captain America shield, so obviously this is just like them doing a take on Moon Knight in a patriotic way. It's fine. I do like how all the flags kind of like circle him and frame him and kind of give us a small window onto him in the middle. I think that's actually really effective from a design standpoint. So yeah, I dig that. Then we have this one, which is Christopher, who does a lot of the action figure covers. And I just love that it's just like, I'm sure it had a logo treatment on it, really. I just couldn't find the logo treatment of it anywhere. These are just all variants of the number one. Just really great, iconic version of his costume. Then this one, which I think, this is Comic Kingdom of Canada. It's a cool cover, but he's like a little, I don't really understand this. He's like, his shoulders are pulled all the way back so that it almost looks like we're looking at him from behind and his head is hunched over to the front. Like the shape of his body is a little bit wrong, which kind of bugs me. Like it just it doesn't look right. And then, I'm not zooming in again because it's going to break everything, but no, we have to. Maybe I'll just drag it in from another window. Okay, here we go. Because this one is one of the best of all time, and I bet you've never even seen it. Look at that. It's like something from Inception. It's all in black and white, although there is a colorized version out there too. He's dragging his cape behind him as he's falling through space. There's all of these buildings around him. He's just rendered in this perfect ivory white. I love this. I'd never seen it before getting ready for the show, and that's why I'm happy I did some variant covers, even though I didn't look for every variant of every issue because it took a really long time to do the variants. That's one of the best Moon Knight covers of all time for me. I mean, if this had been a general release cover and you had the chance to see it frequently, you would absolutely have this on your wall. It's iconic. It absolutely says Moon Knight without having a moon, because he himself is making a little bit of a crescent just in the shape of him. If you follow the shape of the cape to the shape of his arms to him holding out the crescent, and that's, I think, why it's so effective. I just think it's spectacular. Absolutely spectacular cover. Then we have this one of him kind of floating within his own cape and holding out his crescent in front of him. I think that's pretty cool. And again, I like characters that have like look space down to one side. I think that really works for me. Yeah, this is a pretty good one. And actually, are we into the actual run? No, there were so many variants. Here is him, purple, standing on the edge of a building. We've seen a lot of him in purple standing on the edge of a building. I don't know that this is particularly more or less remarkable than any of the other ones we've seen, so doesn't strike me as being the most iconic of all time. Here's yet another number one, him. Now this one's cool because it's like, I like kind of all the folds of his cape kind of floating up behind him, and then also the moon in the background. This is a pretty good iconic character shot, and I like that for a number one cover. I think a number one cover should be like a really iconic character shot, and I think it's maybe even more successful than it's really similar to the last one. They're kind of like black and white versions of each other, this one and this one, in a way. Then there's this one, who an artist that we'll come back to several times, coming back into, he does a lot of the first covers of runs, Gist, or Gist is his name. This is really cool. I like anytime the cape is splayed out on the ground behind him, forming a crescent. I really like the light on him. Just this artist does really cool rendering of light. I like all these unconscious people beaten to a pulp in front of him. That's very Moon Knight. This is one of my favorite covers, and spoilers, every time this guy shows up for a cover, I like it. Then we have this cover, which is homaging the classic Hobgoblin cover from Spider-Man. Moon Knight kind of tearing up his own costume. That's pretty cool, and you don't really need to know anything about the story to like appreciate that. It's very Moon Knight for him to be tearing himself apart. And then another one of these stupid floating head covers, and again, it's not even a good illustration of a head, so like, what are we even doing here? But wait, there's yet more. Here's him. I think, who is this? This is a Hidden Gem cover. I mean, it's fine. He's gonna like beat up this guy who's attacking a woman. I mean, I guess. I don't know that this is particularly memorable in any kind of way. Then we have this one, which is Kyle Holtz. I love this. Just him parched, all in shadow. He really looks like a gargoyle. His cape kind of curling around the moon. There's something very Spawn about it because the cape itself almost looks like prehensile. Very cool variant cover there. Really appreciate it. Oh, and now they get even smaller. Oh, no. So this next one is from something called IG Comic Store. I'd never seen this one before either. I like this. It feels like very Moon Knight, the animated series, kind of to me almost. Like, not that that's a thing. It just feels like it could be. And I love all the shine and glow. I love him. I like this because this has floating elements, but they're not out of proportion to each other. It's in front of this kind of pillar or monolith that's got hieroglyphics on it. That's set against a landscape that starts out as hieroglyphics up to mountains. There's a moon behind him. Just because there's things floating on a cover doesn't mean that I hate it. It just means I want them to be in proportion to each other. I think that's a pretty good cover. I mean, I think Marvel knew that they were cooking something great with this McKay run, and so they really leaned into having a lot of covers on it. And then this is a Mastrazo cover that is oh, that's not the one I was aiming for. How did I get that one? This is a Mastrazo cover that is emulating a classic Stephen Platt cover from the original run of Moon Knight. Very cool. I love that old title treatment that the Moon Knight covers had in the 90s. And just as a reminder, we are still here in the variant covers of this first issue. If we do this again, I don't know about doing a lot of variant covers. It's fun because, as we've seen, some of the best covers that we have looked at have been variant covers. But also, dear God, it adds so many more covers. This one is fun. It's kind of like hyper realistic, very filmic. I like how they preserved the white and it didn't get too silver. I think that's a really good cover. Gosh, there's just so many good ones. And that's why I was excited to pick Moon Knight, because I didn't think his reading order was so hard to describe. But I really thought that it would just be fun to like look at all of his covers because he's got so many good ones. Here's a John Romita Jr. cover. It's fucking ugly, but that's because it's by John Romita Jr. And then finally we get him soaked in blood. You might not be able to see this really clearly from this, but the blood, it doesn't look like it's part of the illustration, which kind of bugs me because I love this. It's a really good close-up of his head, and it's like, I love his fists up, and it's really cool. But then if you go in and on the blood, it just looks like it needed like another like blending pass or something. It looks like it was the last thing added to the image, and then it's like not... It kind of looks a little pasted on top. Oh my gosh, there's even more variants. Kill me. Somebody please put an end to this. So, and that, this is a Terrific Con variant, which is like kind of like emulating one of his old covers with Werewolf by Night. I don't know that I particularly care. This one is from Tales from Another World. It didn't have an artist on it when I grabbed it. But, I mean, that's got to be David Mack. Yeah. I see David Mack's signature. I think David Mack... Oh no. Oh no, Somehow I closed Tearmaker. If it doesn't remember where we ranked all of those covers. No, it does. Okay. Okay. That was gonna get a little bit crazy. Let's add tab. Oh my gosh. Give me a second. I gotta. Gosh. Oh gosh, everything's breaking. Okay. It's getting a little bit warm. I'm going to turn off my heater. Talk amongst yourselves. I was going to say I'll give you a topic. Moon Knight is neither about the moon or the night, but it is about a moon and a night. So I think that's a great topic. Okay. Okay. Crisis avoided, except for it's always a crisis here. So here's the thing. Do we even care about the tier maker anymore? Like, is it because I'm not even commenting on where I put them because I realized that the mental load of trying to remember what's going on with tier maker kind of once you get above the 100 point just doesn't, there's just no way to keep to track it anymore mentally. So it's kind of like, okay, sure, great, tier maker, love that for us. Anyway, David Mack, which I was in the middle of, I think they should hire David Mack and he should do like a whole month of covers. I don't know if they've ever done that, and just do like a cover for every Marvel character. I think it's one of the best. This is Elizabeth Torque. I love Elizabeth Torque because she has a really clean line style and she's big, thick ink lines. I really love the choices here. I mean, it's not the best. We've seen some more iconic covers of him standing alone with his suit, but I do really enjoy him holding the crescents and Khonshu looming behind him. And then, oh my gosh, you got even more variant covers. This one's okay. I like him standing on the crescent and being really silvery, but there's really just no context to why he's standing there. And there's like, the moon is in the logo, but I don't know. And then we have another Scotty Young cover. Scotty Young loves just cramming everything right on top of the center line. That's fine for him. I actually like this better than the other one of him hanging from the moon, because this one feels like a little bit more Moon Knight-y to me. I don't know. It just feels a little more quintessential. This one I love. So this is by Zafino. This is spectacular. It's giving me old school Sienkiewicz. I love that it's just black and white, no other tones at all. I love him rising up from the middle in this column of white that's his cape. I love him silhouetted right against the moon. This, for me, is why I took the time to hunt down so many of these #1 issue variant covers for this, because this, to me, is one of the best Moon Knight images of all time. It's exactly what you want to see when you think of Moon Knight. It gives you such an iconic version of the character. James saying best cover so far. Yeah, I think this is one of the best ones. All right, now we're into the actual run of this comic book, this amazing Jed MacKay comic book. We're just going to speed round rank these. So here's Moon Knight. His mask is torn up. There's all these concentric things around his eye. He's got a crest in his teeth. It's cool. It's got a little bit of pink. I love the white tattering away to pink. I think that gives it a lot of its design interest. It's pretty cool. So then we come to the next issue. This is the introduction of Hunter's Moon, which is kind of like the new fist that Khonshu designates, because Moon Knight Mark Spector is not living up to him. And of course, Moon Knight is just the title. There's been many Moon Knights. I love this. We've already established. I love when something on the cover kind of rises up to cover the whole top part of the cover, and then below it we have something different. The way the hands are kind of almost gives me Jay Lee, and I see that it says McNiven after Jay Lee. So I correctly have uncovered the influence there. Yeah, I think this is pretty cool. I don't know if it's not iconic, but it's certainly one of the coolest covers that we've seen. Yeah. Okay, then we have introducing Tigra into this run, still with McNiven on covers. This is just McNiven again going deep into that David Finch kind of mode where he's just lined so much everything. I love that everything's torn apart for both of them, and actually it's not just showing off like Tigra's body. It's not just like her breasts hanging out. Like, she's got the same amount of coverage as him, which is really cool, and it's just like a really fun cover that's got a lot of motion. Again, I love when characters are posed in opposition to each other and are kind of pointed in different directions from each other. So that one really works for me. I don't think it's like one of the best covers of all time, but certainly better than that Brain cover. Okay, this one I really love. Again, still McNiven. So this is him kind of under the burden of all of these chains. Of course, anytime we see a cover with a lot of weight on a character's shoulders, it's going to give me one of two things. It either gives me Spider-Man on the cover, was that like 32 or 33, with that giant mechanism on the back of him, and also it gives me the Incredible Hulk cover where he's like holding up the logo of Incredible Hulk. I just think this is really cool. This is what I wanted from the Brain cover, like seeing him interacting with something in a meaningful way. I just think it's a really cool cover for him. So now we have him kind of falling from the sky. This one really bugs me, and I couldn't figure out why at first, and then I got it. Why are the newspapers so flat? Or is he... No, he's on the ground. Behind him, he's not falling into the sky. It's giving the illusion of falling into the sky, but it's actually the reflection of the buildings. And we know that because of the raindrops making these perfect concentric circles where they're hitting the ground. But I'm like, would the papers they're too clean and square. Like, they're confusing me. Like, why has he got all these square papers behind him? If they're really in this puddle, they would be like grotty and crumpled and soaked. And then because I like the idea of him on the reflection of the air and him falling through, because it makes it look like he's falling through the sky, but he's on the ground. But I think there's too many poorly executed elements in this, and it actually winds up just being really confusing for me to look at. So then we have him in a fight scene, and here is a great version of Moon Knight in a fight scene. So he's Mr. Knight again, and the cool thing about McKay's run, other than you can just start it from scratch, is it really like puts him in a time and a place. It gives him the midnight mission. He's in New York, and he like is like, this is my turf, this is my area, and it shows him kind of doing that hyper violent thing, but in a very specific way that's like trying to be a benefactor to this very specific neighborhood of people, which maybe really, really works and is what makes it exciting and successful. I just really like this because using him in the white as the center point and then having all these very colorful heroes. We've got Jack-o'-lantern, we've got Elektra, you know, that really works for me better than the covers we've seen with him in the middle of a gang of things in the past where everything wasn't white, and so he kind of just like faded into all of those other elements. This one to me is just so much more interesting. I don't know if it's like a best of all time cover, but it's pretty dang great. Okay, so then let's see. So here we are. This is part of Devil's Reign, but is still an issue of this actual run, number 8. I love this. I mean, it's again the lightning. It's kind of an echo of the first one, but I think this might be Hunter's Moon and not Mark Spector. So it's kind of like showing a different version to us of a character and that same perch doing that same thing. I think it's a really, really cool cover. I think so often these perch covers anchor them perching on the left of the cover, and it gives negative space on the other side. This one works in the opposite, where it kind of like tilts the perch a little bit, so he actually takes up diagonal space in the cover, which means our eye kind of goes to him, and then it doesn't get stuck on the other side of him with nowhere to go. So I think compositionally, this is actually pretty successful in terms of a Moon Knight cover. Yeah, I'm a fan. This one, so this is him kind of inside of the Midnight Mission, I guess, kind of wandering around. Here we're really leaning into Rachel Rosenberg, although I don't know if she colored this cover, but it is her coloring style, even if it's not her coloring the cover, where she does this like blown out, overexposed glow on his cape. And the great thing I like about this is if you didn't know the plot of this comic book, you would just assume that this was him like moving through his brain or whatever, and that there's multiple Moon Knights because he's crazy. So like, but then you get into the comic and you actually realize that this is very motivated by what's happening in the actual comic. And I just love the rendering on him there too. I don't really like this cover. I don't like when Marvel puts the logo in the middle of a cover and it has something reaching down the cover over the logo. They did that in Ryan North's Fantastic Four run once or twice too. It's just really unattractive to me. I do like a character reaching out from something, but him reaching out for a gun, but then the gun muzzle being so close to him, there's just something about it that just really doesn't work for me. Like the composition of it just doesn't quite connect. Here we have, I think, his bad guy, you know, holding up a hourglass. Again, you know, there's certain comic tropes that everybody gets to use once or twice a decade, like sand in the hourglass, the hero stuck in the hourglass, you're running out of time. You know, it's just one of those things, and it's not anything about it intrinsically Moon Knight. I guess like maybe, you know, sand is kind of intrinsically Moon Knight because Egypt. Then this one, we're getting a little bit closer to the look of the interior art, which was a little bit more angular and less of that like David Finch McNiven kind of over rendered art. This was much more what the interiors looked like. I do like characters crossing each other, but there's so much open space at the left there that just is not really part of the composition that it's kind of like feels a little bit wasted to me. I don't know. It's just not as exciting as it could be. Then we come to his actual Devil's Reign issue. So this Devil's Reign issue was collected with issues 7 through 12 in paperback, so you don't have to buy Devil's Reign for it. It's also in the omnibus. We're right in the middle of the Moon Knight by Jed MacKay omnibus but right now as well. And there is a little bit of a break for other action here, so it does make sense. This actually maybe came an issue or two before this, but I love this. You know, him as an inmate, you immediately get where he is. He still has his mask on. He's got his crescent moon in his hand. He's carving days into the wall, but instead of carving how many days he's been in prison, he's carving the cycles of moon into the wall. That is very, very clever. I don't know that Moon Knight being in prison is the most iconic image of all time, but the execution of this Everything about it is perfect. I love a frame within a frame. I love that they actually went with that and then centered the logo in the frame within the frame. That is really clever. I just think this really, really works. So then there's a little bit of a break where we can fit in some other things. There's these Miss Marvel one-shots, including this Miss Marvel and Moon Knight. Something about this cover just really doesn't work for me. It's just the perspective is so forced. It's so much about the bottom of their feet, and also like the way that the camera is actually above the bottom of her foot, but then we still get so much of the bottom of it for some reason. It just really doesn't work for me. I mean, they're rendered okay, but there's, yeah, anytime there's like really awkward posing, it just doesn't work for me. And so then we also are back into the series. Oh, I thought we'd have an annual here, but maybe not. Okay, so here's him just fighting a bunch of people. I mean, he's cool. It's a really good pose. It actually kind of reminds me of the poses all the way back from the 2006 series, but there's just nothing particularly memorable about this. It's just like him and some people. So like there's nothing, I don't really see the point of that. Here we go, back in the kind of psychiatrist chair, which is a quintessential one. Here we have him as Mr. Knight in the psychiatrist chair with multiple personalities around him, which are all going through some stuff, and then also Moon Knight looming over him. I don't know if this is quite as iconic and thrilling as the other psychiatrist chair one that we had, and I do think it's a trope that it's like, okay, how many times are we going to go back to the well of Moon Knight having a psychiatrist looming over him? But it's very, very well done, and I think it's compositionally interesting because all four of them are at kind of the different poles of the, of the cover. So it draws you into the middle of him, and it's almost like an X. There's actually an X, if you look, that's a projection of the window pane across him. So it kind of tells your eyes this is the middle and cross over it like this, which is really, really great composition. So I love a cover that just has really strong composition that leads the eye. Finally, some pink on a cover. We know I love pink on a cover, and it just has, that didn't actually go where I thought it was going. You know that I love pink on a cover, and I lost it. Oh no, there it is. You know I love pink on a cover, and I love, because it pops, and as legend tells it, it used to really stand out on the stands. Oh, somehow I dragged that one up while I was still going. And I love him seeing the reflection of multiple different versions of him in the wall on the side. I mean, that's really effective, and again, it speaks exactly to who Moon Knight is. Here's another cover with pink on it. I really like this one, and I want to talk about why I really like this one. In fact, I think this is what I used on the thumbnail of the show. I love that the crescent of his cape is almost just a design element at the bottom. He's not standing on it, but it kind of frames him. I think that's really clever, and we usually see that happening above him, so I think it's clever to happen below. The white is so pure that it doesn't even look like it's his cape anymore. I love that he's leading us down right off the side of the cover. The diagonal of that is perfectly, we could draw a line right across the cover with it. And I love that they chose to run the logo sideways on the side. Like, work with the artists, make it work. I don't know if this is the most iconic cover of all time, but I just do enjoy a cover where we get the entire figure of our heroes so that we could like almost cut it out and put it on a thumbnail for a show. And I think that this one is actually fantastic for that. So now we get into some stuff that's a little bit like storytelling here. He's wrestling a lion. It's fine. Again, diagonals draw your eyes across the cover, but I don't think there's anything particularly memorable. This is kind of just Moon Knight doing a thing, which is fine. It's important for him to do things sometimes, but it's not particularly memorable. Here's issue 18, him and Tigra being cornered by a bunch of people in a fight. Of course, they know each other from their Avengers West Coast days. I mean, this one's fine. Again, it's kind of just Moon Knight doing a thing. I don't know that there's anything particularly memorable about it for me. Here we are homaging, and I think this must be Rod. It looks a lot like Rod Riss, but maybe it's not. But I think it is. And this is an annual of him with Werewolf by Night that's homaging his original Werewolf by Night. I mean, it's fine. I love an homage. I don't think it's, particularly remarkable. And then this issue doesn't even have Moon Knight in it, so I'm going to give it an F just on principle. They did this series called Murder World that it was a series of one-shots. It's like Murder World Wolverine, Murder World Spider-Man, and none of the characters were actually in it. They were just Arcade's robots of those characters, and so screw that. So you don't even need to fit it in a reading order. So now we come back to Moon Knight again. This is an action cover. Not particularly remarkable. He's getting his head bashed in, whatever. Here we see something fun because we see him kind of in the foreground with his cape around him as the huge crescent. And then we see this character looming over him. The character is very strange. He's got a bucket hat on or a bowler hat on and a weird white face. And then he's got a big cravat and then a pink vest. And I'm just curious. I'm like, what is with his sartorial choices? That is kind of And plus, I do like Moon Knight kind of almost crouching down like he's investigating something, not realizing the thing is looming behind him. I also love the interplay between the crescent of his cape and then that cool logo, which is originally the logo we saw in Vengeance of Moon Knight back in 2009, but here running without Vengeance. Here again, you know, they love to do this Moon Knight fighting a crowd, but this one, of course, works the best for me out of all of them so far because A, he's bright, bright white, which is always what I'm asking for, but B, the crowd around him is pink. So it's got all of my favorite things. I just love this very kind of like sunrise sunset sort of color scheme and the way it kind of fades up into that orange in the middle, and just it really draws your eye to the middle. It kind of makes it, even though some of these characters are recognizably his supporting characters, especially the one that he's back to back with, I think it just makes it so easy to know that he's the most important element on that cover. It's really fun to see. Then we see Tigra here hunting the Midnight Man, so we don't even have Moon Knight on the cover, and I don't think that's like Tigra's greatest costume. And people out of proportion to each other. I mean, you know, he's hunting for her. He's holding his knives like forks, whatever. Don't care. Then we have Venom and Moon Knight, which I spent like 30 minutes last night thinking that this was a one shot and trying to find it in my guide. No, it's just issue number 23, Venom and Moon Knight. It's fine. We've seen Venom with Moon Knight before. I think this is certainly better than some of the covers we've seen with him and Venom before, but I don't know why he's so, I don't know. There's something about I know this is two people popping out of a birthday cake again. I think it's just really hard to do this leaping through the air thing and make it look good. Then we have this one of him kind of reaching out to us in front of the giant laughing face of his bad guy. Again, I don't love covers that are totally out of proportion, two different elements to each other, but I do think he's very cool and dynamic as he leaps out of the background here. And then we have a little bit of room because there's a final arc after issue number 24 where a lot of things happen in very, very fast succession, okay? So anything else that he does, we kind of have to fit into this opportunity here. This is Moon Knight City of the Dead, a terrible series, which is written by an author I don't really appreciate, but it did introduce or kind of bring back Scarlet Scarab, who at the time was in the MCU show, and the art was pretty good as Ron Ferreria's art, which I absolutely love, and it had great covers. I mean, this actually, even though I do not have any fond memories of this series, is maybe the best single Moon Knight image. It's up there. I mean, because again, it's not as iconic maybe as a Bill Sienkiewicz image, but like he's on the crescent, he's holding on to the crescent, he's climbing through it. We've got the statue behind him, the statue holding its own crescent scepter. We've got these pillars. He puts him in a time and a place. It's just very, maybe a little bit generic with the Egyptian of it all, but it's just a really good posed version of it. Yeah, Nick being like, no, the series is not great, but Happy Tiger is being used. I think McKay clearly loves and respects Tigra and is really putting her to good use throughout the run on Moon Knight. By the way, somehow we have 70 more covers to do. Okay, here's him with Scarlet Scarab. It's fine. I mean, it's actually pretty cool. I like that he's being kind of framed and vignetted by these two darker things on either side, and they're both charging forward. It's actually pretty cool. Okay, him, again, we've seen a lot of these covers, him kind of rising off of a mountain of stuff. I don't think we've seen him on red a whole lot, and that actually is really effective because, red on white immediately gives you gothic. Here, I don't love these covers that are just a bunch of fragments of things. I think it works when there's actually a shattered mirror, but there's no real reason for any of these things to exist, so it's totally not motivated, and I fucking hate that. And then we have Mr. Knight and Moon Knight and Khonshu together fighting off a big crowd of bad guys here. Again, actually they're not just bad guys, they're a crowd of mummies. We've just seen so many of these Moon Knight in a crowd covers at this point, and this one is composed well, but I don't think there's anything particularly remarkable about this crowd. Okay, so then there's also a Moon Knight annual. This is really not worth reading. This was part of the Contest of Chaos. Agatha Harkness, I think, is like making heroes fight other heroes. He fights this random hero from the Tiger Division. It's a really good, cool version of Moon Knight here. Like, I really like this version of his costume. I like the rendering on his gauntlets. I like how he's like got his crescent mounted on his wrist. I really like it. I like the spray of his cape kind of going up and being behind the logo. I think this is a Lionel Francis view, but it's just like, it's not super, super memorable. And his one leg on the right there is so long that it almost looks like those are the two legs of the guy he's fighting and that the legs are spread out, which is kind of awkward. He's got a really wide stance there. So yeah, there's some compositional problems with it that make me not love it. And then finally, there's this really adorable series of one-shots for Strange Academy where they go to New York and they interact with a bunch of heroes. Here, this is the second part of it. It's them interacting with Moon Knight. I mean, this is cute. It is fun, but there's, nobody's going to go back and think this is one of my favorite Moon Knight covers of all time. So now we get back to the actual run, the 25th issue. This by McNiven again. We've seen him in a graveyard before. This one doesn't work for me. Why are these graves so close to each other? Why is this one turned this way and this one is turned this way? Why is he between it like that? Why is his hand all the way below his butt? Why is the earth so... It just doesn't make... The more and more I look at it, the less and less sense it makes. It just doesn't make any sense at all. So then we have issue number 26, which has Hunter's Moon on the cover here with the moloids. I mean, this is really cool. Again, I think we've sensed that I really like when one part of the character or one part of a color kind of fills up one whole side of the cover because that creates framing and it kind of makes the cover dynamic and interesting. Then we have issue number 27, both of the two of them, Hunter's Moon and Moon Knight, on the same cover. Again, I really don't like this. What is the relationship between these characters? One of them is in the background, one of them is in the foreground. What's going on with this architecture? Why is the cape the shape that it is? Why isn't it doing more of a crescent? I know it's not the worst cover we've seen, but it just doesn't feel like there's any deliberate choices here. Now we're coming to the end of this run. We see the two of them again with this like Darth Vader-y looking thing behind them. I mean, it's fine. It's better than some of the ones with really bad composition, but it's not as good as some of the ones with really good action, if that makes any sense. Then we have him actually fighting this bad guy. Of all of the diagonal punching covers we've seen, this one is actually relatively weak, I think, amongst them. And then we come to the end of the series with a defeated Moon Knight. I mean, I think that the defeated Moon Knight is fine. I don't know that it's like exciting in any way. Okay, here's our character, battered and bloodied. We're there. He's been beaten up. Like, congratulations. Somehow I didn't drag that last one, but we didn't like it. That's all that we needed to know. Okay, so then something interesting happens. He's presumed dead. So his next series starts, but since he's presumed dead, this is a great time to insert another series. And so this is Moon Knight Black, White, and Blood. And right off the bat, we have one of my favorite Moon Knight covers of all time here. So Black, White, and Blood is an anthology series. It's in 3 colors, just black, white, and red. And it has kind of very brutal 2 or 3 stories per issue. I love this. I love that he's rising up off the ground. I love his cape pulling on the ground as a crescent. We know that I really like that. I love the bloody handprints on it. I love him like looming over this other character. It feels very Moon Knight. It's just really, really an effective cover that I enjoy. Then the second one, I mean, we're really playing the hits here. And of course we're leaning on the blood. This is I don't know if this is actually David Finch, but it's I'm trying to make out the signature. But I mean, again, they really go hard on these Black, White, and Blood covers because they want people to just pick them up as one-offs off the stands, and they work that way. This is just absolutely entertaining. I love how much space he fills without making him so huge and bulky the way that he was in the David Finch era covers. I just think it's really, really successful to me. Here he is on red. I mean, this is really fun. We've never really seen anything like this in all of these covers, hundreds of covers that we've looked at, where he's like perched on the moon. Like we're playing with the scope of him in relation to and interacting with the moon. And so I think it's different than just having him as a gargoyle all of the time perched on things. I think it's actually really fun. And then we have this one, which has him, we've seen him holding the bloody crescents before, so this is not the first time. We've seen him on a field of white before, but again, it's always fun to have his white on red. I think that that's really, really cool. So I think that one is pretty up there for me, actually. I think it's a really good cover. And then this one, now we're into the next series in order. So a lot of people were pretty annoyed when that Jed MacKay omnibus came out because it didn't have this next series and it was a pretty short omnibus. It didn't have a ton of stuff, although it did have the annuals in it, to give it credit, but that's because MacKay does tend to coordinate his stuff very closely. So he's like fine with that stuff being in his book, unlike some other writers we could name. But being that short, people were like, why wouldn't you just wait for this next series? Especially because that omnibus really kind of ends on a cliffhanger with like, is Moon Knight dead or not? So now we pick up with Vengeance of the Moon Knight. This has not been collected in Omnibus before. We are now in 2024, and this is a 9-issue series that runs over the course of 2024. I love this cover, actually. I love him with these like big scary sickles. He looks big without looking like distended the way that he's looked on some of those David Finch covers, which I really kind of dig about this. I love that he's like rendered in gray instead of white, because it's kind of like this is maybe a Moon Knight who's crossed over to the other side a little bit. I think that's really cool. Oh boy, now things got really big all of a sudden for some reason. So, because we're in variant covers. So this one is like clearly meant to just look very much like the MCU version of Moon Knight. To me, it's just like a little too rendered for me to enjoy. And we know that I like something that gets really close to a photograph, but it's just like in a little bit of an uncanny valley for me of like, is it a person in a photograph? Is it a cover? Is it a lump of clay? Then we have another, this is Capullo, who does not do a ton of stuff for Marvel. Clearly Capullo, you know, having drawn Batman and Spawn for so long, is a perfect artist to do Moon Knight. I don't always love the line weights on him, especially if he's inked by Glampion and this is colors by FCO. It's fine. I don't know that it's particularly memorable to me. And then here's what we know as the design covers. They kind of just show a couple of versions of the design of that character from the interior artist. So obviously the composition of it is kind of effed, but you know, it's fun to see that. And I think it's really cool to see that up close. So then we have another variant cover here. This one is really cool because it's kind of playing with how glowing he is, and I really appreciate that. He fills up the whole space. We have him doing his gargoyle thing on the edge of a roof. I think this is actually like a pretty cool Moon Knight cover and a pretty iconic image of Moon Knight. And then again, I don't really understand this. Like, it's Moon Knight standing in front of Moon Knight, which kind of makes sense in the run because it's like him coming back to himself, but like, why, where is he standing? Why is that other Moon Knight as big as he is? Why isn't the other Moon Knight actually bigger and him smaller? Compositionally, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And then we have this throwbacky tribute cover. I mean, it's meant to be ugly because it's an old, you know, it's homaging old ugly covers. So there you go. And then finally, we have this one, which kind of almost looks like one of the Scotty Young covers because it's very animated, but it's actually not. I don't think it is Scotty Young. It's because it's not all cutesy like Scotty Young. I forget who this is. I forget who it is. And then we have one more of him kind of looking really sinister and holding this glowing thing in his hand. I think it's a really cool composition. I love the colors, but it's like, what is that? What is Moon Knight about that? And then here we go. Oh, this is just a different colored version of that other one. And then here's him leaping in front of a blood moon. We haven't really played with the idea of a blood moon before. Like, where have been the blood moons in this? So that's pretty cool. And we know that I like him on red, but I don't know. I'm trapped in this prison of my own design because I swore I was going to rank 250 covers. We have come up against the edge of my interest here, but that's okay because we're almost to the end and we're past all of the variant covers. So this is cool. I mean, this is rendered a perfect amount for me. We have this new creepy version of Moon Knight fighting against, I guess, Hunter's Moon in front of this kind of bedecked version of Khonshu in his like robes and official garb. I think this is really fun. I don't know if it could be one of the best Moon Knight covers of all time because it's like, is it like plain and obvious enough to be iconic? But we know how much I love Khonshu on the cover, and I just think everything about it, compositionally, colors, rendering, is really, really cool. Here's Moon Knight and kind of on a whole fiery bed of pink. That's sort of fun. I do like him kind of silhouetted, and we're playing with his costume being black at this point. We do like him beating the crap out of people, but it's kind of like everybody's silhouetted, so then is he really special? I don't know. This one, I like them both on red, but it's just so dark. I can't really get anything in this cover. It's just not, I just can't really make anything out. And then here we get into his tie-ins to Blood Hunt, which of course McKay is piloting, so he's trying to make really good use of, you know, Blood Hunt, you know, being his own series. Moon Knight kind of menacing Tigra. I do enjoy how he's taking up the whole space here, and she's just her little pop of orange in the middle. I don't know if it's like my favorite rendering of a color cover, but we're really leading into the horror of it all because, you know, this was the vampire crossover, so I think that really kind of works. Then we have another Blood Hunt one, and this show kind of plays with everybody in white instead of in black, including the vampires kind of being in a white light. I don't really like that red crescent. I know it's meant to be like a slash of blood and also the crescent moon, but it just doesn't really super work for me. And then we get, you know, Moon Knight and Tigra facing off against all of these villains. It's fine. I don't really think it tells my eye where to go. like, because you look at her red, but then I think it's hard when she's red and then he's black and he's also white. It's really, really hard to understand where your eye is supposed to go on these covers. Then this is a reading order thing. So this issue comes out here, and I would suggest reading here. It's Fist of Khonshu, which is the next series that launches, and we still have a couple of issues left of this series, but this zero issue is all single page pinups that explains the cast of everybody in the book, and it kind of fits chronologically right here at the end of Blood Hunt. So even though it goes with a series that launches as a full-time series after this series, I would read issue number O of Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu here in the running order. This is a great cover. Again, I think anytime we have him in the black costume, I just am afraid to say that's one of the most iconic covers of all time, because his costume historically is not a black costume, but I think this might be just again. I love him here. I love that he's got a defeated person. He's lit by Moon Knight. He's got this column in front of him. I mean, it's just a really fun, really effective, really cool cover. There's only one variant cover to that, which is Moon Knight in the middle of all of these kind of like scimitars standing with this totally blown out white. That's how he's illustrated at this point. I love it because if you just look at it briefly, it looks like he's, I don't know, like he's in this kind of, he's in like thorns or something. Like it doesn't really read right away what's happening, and I think there's something cool about that. But then we have to finish Vengeance of the Moon Knight, the series, before we can actually get to that series. So here's him facing off against himself or against Hunter Moon. It's fine. I don't really love them as like Godzilla's in front of a giant city. Like, I get that it's meant to be like they're fighting for control of the city, but I don't know. It's just not my favorite trope. And then finally, this one, I do like it for like how cool and like warbly and sketchy the edges of everything is. And now he's kind of blown out by this image here, but also like, what am I looking at? It's just hard to understand what you're looking at. And I think that makes it hard to have fun with this cover. So then there's another annual that fits in here. This one is not by Jed MacKay. It's by actually Dan Waters, who write Dark Patterns. This was part of the Infinity Watch annuals. It is totally disposable. I mean, this cover is hideous. The way her body is positioned makes no sense whatsoever. It's just him fighting a random member of the new Infinity Watch. So now we come to yet another miniseries, but this one is actually good, and I would actually like it if this would be in an omnibus with the MacKay stuff, although I know that is never going to happen. And so this is Faces of the Moon Knight, which is basically just a Moon Knight anthology book telling different stories of different Moon Knights through time. And I really, really like the covers on all of it. I think this was really worth reading. The stories were like surprisingly great, and it doesn't really have that much modern Moon Knight in it, but since we're at a good part where there's like a little bit of an act break, it's a great place to just take a break and read it. So each of the issues features two different Moon Knights in their stories, and so the covers are all really similar, showing kind of two Moon Knights kind of glowing and being held next to each other. And so some of the covers are a little more successful than others. I mean, this one is like a weird bunny girl and like a weird looming shadow of a Moon Knight. That's a little strange, but it's a really, really fun series. And again, Khonshu here lording over a couple of small Moon Knights. Khonshu is, of course, the one things we can show successfully being a lot bigger than the Moon Knights in the image, because Khonshu makes sense if you show him bigger than them, since he really would be looming over them. Okay. Now we come to the recently concluded second to last series we're going to cover, Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu. Of course, we had already started this with that issue 0. This is like a decent image of him. I think at this point we've seen so many good images of Moon Knight with the crescents, with the batons, that it's really, you realize how hard it is for a cover artist to continue turning in cool covers, because like, what is to say that your cover is iconic or is going to be memorable after we've seen all of these other covers, right? It's just hard to be memorable after a certain amount of time. There are some variants here. I do enjoy him kind of on a perch in front of Khonshu, where Khonshu himself is kind of forming a little bit of the crescent with Moon Knight here, but I don't know that this is like a particular, these came in a different order than I have them in my file here. Okay, there it is. Yeah, it's good. It's a strong one. And again, I like Khonshu on a cover. Show me the creepy bird spirit. Okay, so then this is another variant cover. Oh my gosh, there's so many variant covers. This is fine. I don't like that kind of like big gaping maw of his cowl hanging down. Kind of makes him look like a Nazgul. I don't really understand what the design, we're trying to achieve with this design. Like, what is the shape? What are we trying to say? It's just him. Like, there's nothing's happening really to draw our eye around. I feel like this cover is a version of a cover that we've seen before by like some other artist. And it's a very clean, great cover. We like seeing him totally in black and then silhouetted by just a little bit of light there. I think this is actually one of the stronger kind of hero pose covers that we've had this entire time. Of course, we still get his crescent lit up on his chest. That's a pretty good one. Then we have this one, which is kind of showing him silhouetted in white and a little kind of keyhole of white that is partially formed by his cape, kind of frames him out across the city. And I think that's really, really fun. Again, we love him on white. Why did I decide to rank 257 covers? What is wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Here's some Scotty Young. I think this is the weakest of the Scotty Young covers. It's just like he's run out of ideas of where to put things in the center of an image at this point. Here's a pretty cool one, though. I think there's something weird about the perspective. It kind of reminds me of the 90s for some reason. I can't quite tell you why, but just how we're like at eye level with him. And so the batons just look like they're part of his forearms. I just don't think that really works. Finally, here we are to issue number 2. I feel like there must have been a couple of really tiny variant covers in here somewhere that I didn't catch, or maybe they're just somewhere else in the order. But anyway, here we are finally to issue number 2. So this is cool because this is like the whole gang of his midnight mission. And I like that we're in a city street, but it's kind of just blown out white background so we kind of see them all and we can appreciate them all. It's a good cast of characters cover, and we haven't really, have we really had one of these at all? We very rarely get to see him with his full cast of characters all doing action. And of course this works because we start reading a cover from the left side. So it's kind of like we're reading onto all of them and being like, why are they looking at us? Then we have Moon Knight menacing a dude here. We've had so many of Moon Knight menacing a dude. Like, again, it's hard to make it iconic. I think it's fine. I think the blood spatter actually is like pretty well designed and looks decent, but it's just like him menacing a dude. I do like this one. Because A, we know one of the versions of Moon Knight's identity is actually a cab driver, so I think there's something fun about seeing him leaping onto the hood of a taxi cab here. Or is it? No, it's a police car, because we see the donuts flying. But this is a thing that we've never seen before. Again, it's really hard to innovate on covers because there's been so many covers. We very rarely see him looking out through something. The only other time we've really done that is when we looked out through the maw of that werewolf so far back. I think that's actually a really fun cover. Then we see him kind of like, is he a vampire? He's got fangs. He's looking over his shoulder. He's in the sewers. I think that's fine. I don't think there's anything particularly exciting about it. However, this one is cool. We have Khonshu, giving his blessing maybe over Tigra and the hint that she's going to get with Hunter's Moon. That's not a real thing. They're actually, I think, just both trying to help Moon Knight here. But there's just something really fun here. I really like that the orange of the logo mimics the orange of her hair, which is this flamey kind of spike of color that kind of leads you with its tendrils into the center of the composition. I just think this is really fun to look at. There's just something really, really pleasing about it. Now we're to issue number 7. Is 8-Ball turned on Moon Knight? He's been on Moon Knight's team all this time. Again, there's only so many times you can show me a bunch of villains looming over our character. I think because there's also a suspension of disbelief here thing of happening. Like, yeah, of course he's going to beat the crap out of 8-Ball. Like, obviously that's going to happen. So it's like, no matter how good the cover is, how excited am I going to get about the hero kind of in the middle, this one's more exciting to me. Not only because it's pink, not only because this character was so cool. She was like the kind of enforcer in chief for the bad guy that he was fighting, I think, or maybe she was, I forget. But it's just, this is interesting. She stabbed him and it almost is like his cape is running out of him, like spider webbing away, but then there's also blood. I love how the whole thing is like canted off to the side. She's just like really a remarkable figure. Again, anytime you put an X in the middle of the cover, that actually really helps draw the eye. It's like a classic comic cover trick. And so her limbs and her sword and her torso kind of are forming a little bit of an X in the middle of the cover there, so it really leads your eye. I do think this is one of those ones that it's specific to what's the story being told in the image, but there's just something so iconic about it to me, and I don't know if it's just because it's pink. Same for this one. Again, like, I think we've seen characters beat up by other characters 100 times, but show me something that's like a little bit like surprising or fun. I love this. I love the diner side in the background where some of the neon letters have burnt out, so it just says die. I mean, like, okay, like play with, tell me a story with your cover. I love this guy, so like ripped his foot on Moon Knight's back and Moon Knight leveraging himself up with his fist off the ground. I love the neon glow of the diner on the side of him. The lighting is really cool. I mean, everything about that cover is super cool. So then we have a moon-sized 250th issue, which is funny because this is the 245th issue that we've all talked about tonight. Crazy, but it's true. I mean, this is just a dark version of Moon Knight leaping above a crowd. I don't know that, like, it's particularly interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I don't know. We've seen better. Then we have issue number 11. This is creepy. He's like, again, we're playing with this idea of like, is Moon Knight the costume or is Mark Spector the costume? So he's like tearing off all of, you know, his face in front of his associates. Actually, I don't think this is particularly my favorite drawing that we've seen on a cover. Like, I don't really find it all that attractive ultimately. So it's like nice for getting the point across, and there's nothing compositionally wrong with it, but I just don't like looking at it. Then we have this one of him tearing something apart. I feel like anytime we see a character tearing something apart like this, it kind of always subtly homages that Hobgoblin classic cover, but actually it's Khonshu tearing apart potentially Moon Knight, maybe even splitting apart his identities. And I love when we do play with this kind of like teal, seafoamy, greeny blue in the background of any of these covers. And so I think that, like, you know, we've learned I'm a sucker for Khonshu on the cover. Issue 13, this feels really generic. I do love the trope of like somebody leaping towards us, the hero leaping towards us, and then there's something kind of in the foreground that we're seeing him from behind. So it puts us in this perspective of the villain. There is something fun about that, but I just don't know how interesting the cover is. I mean, again, we start to get in the covers that just fade into one another. This is a cool iconic shot of him kind of perched on this, you know, we've seen him doing the gargoyle thing a million times already. Here he is doing a gargoyle thing with, I think, Scarlet Scarab. I like kind of the red cast on his cape that's being cast by the light, not the light of the moon though, unless it's a blood moon, I suppose, but I don't know that that's the best cover ever. And then we come to him all beaten up again. I mean, it's just everybody loves to see their characters all beaten up. Everybody likes to see Moon Knight bloody, but this blood splatter, it just feels like so random to me. I mean, the cover works fine, although his arms do kind of look kind of long, but I don't know. Like, what is the attraction of this? And again, to end a run on somebody with the crap beaten out of them. So then we come to this number 1 of the new run, which I think is just such a cool cover. We see him in his sarcophagus, asleep, his eyes aglow. Is he going to awaken? I don't know, because I haven't read any comics for the last few months, so I need to catch up and start reading Moon Knight from here. And I believe this is the last one we're going to do. There are some variants to this issue, but I didn't continue into this run because I just wanted to kind of get us started on this new run. So we're calling it, baby. That's the end of the rankings. So do I have to save this? Save. Title. Moon Knight as it was at end of stream. Okay. Save. So before we head away, and hopefully that does save, and let's zoom in. Oh my gosh, look at them all populating. Tier makers as it's trying to think of them all. Let's try to zoom in and see what we said were our most iconic ones of all time. Moon Knight number 1 with Warren Ellis. Major support from the chat that this is one of the most iconic ones. The Black Knight in Blood cover. This awesome alternate cover of him rising in this column. This great spectacular cover from late in the Bendis and Malieve run. This alternate cover of the first issue of the Bendis Malieve run, which we absolutely loved and had never seen before. Moon Knight peeling his own face off with this efficiency of line work from Greg Smallwood. Another Malieve cover that's spectacular. This cover of him falling across the cityscape. We've never seen anything quite like it. It's so cool. Nobody had seen it before. This Sienkiewicz cover of him in his Egyptian glory. Another cover that is a variant cover, him kind of reaching up towards the moon, just a perfect silvery illustration of him. Another Smallwood cover of Khonshu looming over little Mark Spector. Is it Jake Lockley? I forget, but he's just a little kid on the ground. This beautiful David Mack cover. This first City of the Dead cover, which I said had everything a Moon Knight cover should have. And I think I might actually move this one down, because I don't know if I feel like it's as iconic as I thought. I actually think this one turned out to be more iconic than that one, although I do always remember those guns. So, well, we learned some things about ourselves today. We learned that we should never again try to rank 247 things all in one show, although I will say, I think that I did a pretty good job considering I brought it in under 2.5 hours. So, Thank you so much for watching. This was an experiment. So if you enjoyed this, I can't believe some of you are still awake. Oh my gosh, Edwin's awake. Jamie C is awake. Lance is awake. Logan is awake. Nick N is awake. Somehow Cedric and Ellen are also awake. So what I want is your feedback, not in the chat. Leave it in a comment if you happen to watch all the way to the end. God help us all. I want to know, how would you like to see me do this in the future? Because I think there's something to this, combining a reading order with a cover examination. Maybe it's that we scroll through the covers and talk about the reading order and we just pull out the best of the best covers and then we look at those at the end. I don't know. I think there's something to it, and I would love to do this regularly as a way to talk about the reading guides for characters and the reading orders for characters. I just updated everything about the Moon Knight guide on Crushing Krisis, so you can go to the Moon Knight guide now. And it's a public guide. It's available to everybody because it's from before even the Patreon era existed. So if you have any Moon Knight questions and you, what happened there? Hold on, remove. So if you have any questions about Moon Knight or you want to check on the reading order, you can just go to the guide. It's just crushingkrisis.com/Moon Knight. So give me your feedback below on what you'd like to see in a stream like this in the future. I'd love to do one for Wonder Woman. I'd love to do ones for characters with trickier reading orders, but there's got to be something more fun about it, and it's got to be a little bit snappier. So thanks for hanging out with me for this experiment. I'll be back next week with an all new, all different show as we try some new things now that the poll season is over. I will also be updating Crushing Krisis. So if you're watching this live, and not a ton of you still are because it was a long time to just talk about Moon Knight covers, you can join me in the after party. The link is in the description below, but it will go away once the after party starts. And until I see you next time, let's really remember to go out in the world and do good in the world. And you know, the thing is, trans rights are human rights. Immigrants are people. I mean, I don't know how many times I can say this, and hopefully it sinks through for all of you, since you're people who would kind of be into the kinds of conversations we have on this. But the demonification of people that are just trying to live their lives and move around. It turns out we don't have as many rights to move around the world as we thought we did. And so try to respect people who've done that, whether you think of them as having done it legally or illegally. It takes a lot of courage to pick yourself, your family, your life, your belongings up and or maybe no belongings at all, and move to a totally different place. I just think that if we can come at looking at people that are different than us with some perspective and respect, that we could get so much farther than always trying to vilify or demonize them. So let's try to bring that energy into the world, and let's try to treat everybody well, and let's be the superheroes that we like to read about every day. Until I see you next time, which could just be a minute from now in the after party, please don't have a crisis. Unless, of course, it's me.